Chapter 161. At dawn the next day, Duan Lingtian went to Paladin Academy as usual. Everything seemed to be very calm. But Duan Lingtian knew that all of this was only the calm before the storm. Right now, who knew how many undercurrents were surging in the dark against him? At noon, Duan Lingtian ate with Xiao Yu and the others in the cafeteria as usual. Suddenly, in the distance, a senior student walked over in large strides and passed an invitation to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, the third prince, will hold a banquet in the estate in 10 days, inviting the young talents of the imperial city. This is the invitation he asked me to pass to you. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Duan Lingtian's reply before putting down the invitation and turning around to leave. Third prince? Duan Lingtian opened the invitation, and on it were some polite words. The signature was Chu Yang. Duan Lingtian had heard that the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family had the surname Chu. Duan Lingtian, the third prince, is famous for his thirst for talent. The young talents that are invited by him are all dragons amongst men. I'm afraid he's taken a fancy to you this time. Xiao Sun laughed heartily. What kind of person is this third prince? Duan Lingtian put away the invitation and was slightly curious. The invitation was personally written by the third prince, Chu Yang, and his words were extremely casual. There wasn't the slightest trace of a condescending tone, and it was more like he was treating Duan Lingtian with an equal attitude. This was extremely rare in Duan Lingtian's opinion. The third prince is famous in the imperial city for being easy to talk to, and he's also one of the few crown princes with the most support. Xiao Sun slowly said, in recent years the emperor has aged and is bedridden all year round. It's the time for the throne to change. Including the third prince, the few crown princes are even secretly competing against each other. Duan Lingtian, you have to carefully consider the banquet set up by the third prince in 10 days. Once you go, it means you'll become a thorn in the side of the other princes. Among them is the fifth prince. The fifth prince is also a popular candidate for the next successor to the throne. If you lean towards the third prince's side, even if he knows that you're a direct descendant of the Duan clan, I'm afraid he'll shed all pretense of cordiality with you. After all, your natural talent is too shocking. It's very likely that he'll take you as a potential threat and strangle you in the cradle. Xiao Sun finished speaking in one breath. According to him, he hoped that Duan Lingtian would find an excuse to not attend the banquet. Sometimes there were some things that could not be touched. Once touched, it would lead to disaster. Even the three great clans of the imperial city would generally not allow their direct descendants to be involved in the dispute for the throne. Fifth prince? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled up into a smile, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. I'm just going to attend a banquet, and he wants to strangle me in the cradle? Duan Lingtian, are you really going to attend the banquet? You have to think carefully. Xiao Sun originally thought that Duan Lingtian would accept his suggestion and not attend the banquet, but now it seemed that Duan Lingtian really intended to attend the banquet. Why wouldn't I go? It's only a meal. Duan Lingtian said indifferently. A meal? The corners of Xiao Sun's mouth twitched, and he gave Xiao Yu a signal with his eyes. But unfortunately, even if Xiao Yu spoke out to persuade him, Duan Lingtian only laughed it off and didn't take this matter seriously. In the afternoon, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds, consumed an origin-increasing pill, and silently cultivated. Now, as long as he had free time, he practically used it all on cultivating. What he wanted to do now was to allow his cultivation to break through to the origin core stage as soon as possible. Once he broke through to the origin core stage, he would be able to become a grade 8 alchemist and refine a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill, which would allow Xiong Quan's cultivation to recover to the void prying stage. At that time, many of the problems he faced would be easily solved. Unknowingly, dusk arrived. Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and leaped down from the large tree, then walked out of Paladin Academy with Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. It's the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage. Xiao Sun's eyes were sharp as he recognized the carriage that was parked outside Paladin Academy's entrance. Now, besides the carriage driver, there were two other people that each rode a Fergana horse and stood there. A middle-aged soldier that wore light armor, and beside him was a young man that wore casual clothes. The young man was around 20 years old and had the Paladin Academy student token on his waist. Now that he saw Duan Lingtian walk out of Paladin Academy, he said to the middle-aged soldier, "Father, that violet-clothed youth is Duan Lingtian." Duan Lingtian had just walked out when he noticed the two people beside the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage galloping forward on their horses and walking towards him. After a short moment, the two people dismounted their horses. The middle-aged soldier nodded to Duan Lingtian and asked politely, "May I ask if you're young Master Lingtian?" "You are?" Duan Lingtian had a bewildered expression as he didn't know this person. "I'm Peng Wu, the Deputy General under Grand General Nye, and this is my son Peng Rui. I came here today on the orders of the Grand General to invite young Master Lingtian to the Divine Might Marquis estate for a gathering." Peng Wu spoke respectfully, and he didn't look down on Duan Lingtian in the slightest because Duan Lingtian was only a youth. "The Grand General you speak of is the current Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan?" Duan Lingtian's eyebrows raised as he asked curiously. "Exactly." Peng Wu hurriedly nodded. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked. Could it be that the Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan knows of my true identity? That's not right. Logically speaking, his disguise technique should be flawless. Then why is it here? Duan Lingtian carried a trace of bewilderment as he bid farewell to Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu, then boarded the Divine Might Marquis estate's carriage. "Deputy General Peng, do you know why the Divine Might Marquis is looking for me?" Duan Lingtian pulled open the carriage's curtains and asked Peng Wu, who was outside. But unfortunately, Peng Wu didn't know either, as he was only under orders to receive Duan Lingtian. Once again arriving at the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian had a different feeling. This time, he came to the Divine Might Marquis estate with his true appearance. Within the Divine Might Marquis estate's audience hall, Duan Lingtian once again saw the Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan. "You're the son of my brother Ru Feng, Duan Lingtian?" Duan Lingtian noticed that when Nye Yuan saw him, he was extremely excited. As he thought of what Nye Yuan said, his heart shook. Could it be that the relationship between this Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan and his deadbeat father wasn't ordinary? "Greetings, Marquis." Duan Lingtian lightly nodded to Nye Yuan, which could be considered as a greeting. Nye Yuan didn't mind Duan Lingtian's lack of manners in the slightest. He arrived before Duan Lingtian in a few steps, then extended his hand to grab onto Duan Lingtian's shoulders and patted him, then laughed heartily. "Ru Feng has a good son, Ru Feng has a good son." Nye Yuan's laughter was filled with gratification and wasn't fake in the slightest. Duan Lingtian's heart felt warm. Looks like the relationship between his deadbeat father and this Divine Might Marquis isn't shallow. "Marquis, you're friends with my father?" Duan Lingtian had a bewildered expression as he asked. "Come, sit down first. I'll tell you slowly." After Nye Yuan invited Duan Lingtian to sit down at the side, he had a face full of smiles as he told Duan Lingtian about the past between him and Duan Ruffing. As he spoke, Nye Yuan's eyebrows fluttered, and he seemed to have become younger by a few years. Gradually, Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. It turned out that his deadbeat father was good friends with Nye Yuan. That year the two of them were students that entered Paladin Academy in the same batch. From the beginning they got to know each other through a fight, but in the end they became good friends and good brothers. "That year, if it wasn't for me going on an expedition, I wouldn't have let you and your mother go far away. Speaking of this matter, it's all my fault. I've let brother Ru Feng down." Nye Yuan said guiltily. "Marquis, all of this has nothing to do with you. You don't have to blame yourself." Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he shook his head. He was able to sense that Nye Yuan was really concerned about him. "Little Tian, you don't have to be courteous before me. That year when your father was still here, I addressed him as my brother. In the future you can call me Uncle Nye," Nye Yuan said. In his eyes there was a doting expression. "Uncle Nye." Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile, and he admired Nye Yuan from the bottom of his heart. His deadbeat father had been missing for so many years, yet Nye Yuan was still able to love him to this extent. It was truly rare. "Father, I heard Ling Tian has come?" Right at this moment, a young man slowly walked in from outside the audience hall, and his voice contained slight pleasant surprise mixed within. It was precisely Nye Yuan's son, Nye Fen. "Little Tian, this is my son Nye Fen. Now that I speak of it, he even carried you when you were still in swaddling clothes all those years ago," Nye Yuan introduced. As expected of the child of Uncle Ru Feng and Aunt Ro. His appearance is handsome and extraordinary, and he's even slightly similar to Uncle Ru Feng all those years ago. Nye Fen couldn't help but praise as he looked at Duan Lingtian. "Big brother Nye, you're too kind." Even if Duan Lingtian's skin was thick, he still couldn't help but feel slightly hot. Nye Fen smiled. "Little Tian, you don't know, but when he heard the news about you yesterday, my father still didn't dare believe it. Until it was confirmed, then he immediately asked Uncle Peng to go get you." He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration towards Duan Lingtian's actions at Paladin Academy yesterday. A youth that was only 18 years old actually had a cultivation that had stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage. As for the matter of Duan Lingtian killing Duan Lingxing, he didn't think much of it. In his eyes, Duan Lingxing was nothing. If Ru Feng knew that he had a son like you, he would surely be gratified. Nie Yuan, this dignified Grand General, vividly displayed the amiability of a senior before Duan Lingtian. I heard the voices of you father and son from far away. This is Ru Feng's son? Suddenly, an aged figure walked in from outside the audience hall. Duan Lingtian glanced over, and the person that entered was precisely the senior marquis. When the senior marquis saw Duan Lingtian for the first time, he was stunned. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. He knew that the old man had already recognized him. Accurately speaking, the old man had recognized him as the Lingtian that refined the antidote that day. Although the origin energy in the old man's body was suppressed by the dark nether minx poison, the spiritual force of a void prying stage expert still remained. Relying on his acute perception, he was naturally able to detect that Duan Lingtian's aura was similar to Lingtian's from that day. Father, what's this? Chapter 162. Nie Fen looked at his grandfather as well, as he noticed that the atmosphere wasn't right. Are you going to say it yourself or should I? The old man glanced at Duan Lingtian with a deep meaning, and the corners of his mouth held a smile, as if everything was within his control. Nie Yuan and Nie Fen were even more curious, as they didn't know what riddle the old man and Duan Lingtian were talking about. Senior Marquis, it's better if you say it. Duan Lingtian was slightly embarrassed, as he was rather helpless when facing an old fox like this. If it wasn't for my perception that far surpassed an ordinary person, I'm afraid I wouldn't have noticed. Needless to say, your disguise technique is indeed brilliant, Brother Lingtian. The old man's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled, as if he'd said something unimportant. Brother Lingtian? Disguise? Nie Yuan and Nie Fen weren't stupid, and they instantly reacted. There seemed to be only one youth that could make the old man call him brother, and it was precisely that mysterious youth, Lingtian, that came to the Divine Might Marquis estate over 2 months ago and refined the antidote medicinal pill for the old man. Little Tian. The brother Lingtian from that day was actually you? Nie Yuan noticed as well that the build and voice of this nephew of his was exactly the same as the violet-clothed youth with an ordinary appearance from that day. In an instant, his face was filled with shock. It's really brother Lingtian? Nie Fen was stunned as well, and he slightly didn't dare believe it. Uncle Nie, big brother Nie, it's me. That day, I didn't know that Uncle Nie and my father had that layer of relationship, so I hope you can forgive me for offending you. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but smile apologetically when he recalled the incident from that day. It was really as the saying goes, a family that doesn't recognize a family. Brother Lingtian, what are you saying? If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid this old life of mine wouldn't be able to live for long. The old man shook his head and sighed, and his gaze was complicated. Never had he imagined that the youth that refined the antidote medicinal pill for him would actually be the son of his son's good friend, Duan Ruffing. Senior Marquis, please don't call me brother. I don't dare to accept it. Duan Lingtian had a bitter smile on his face. It was fine that he didn't acknowledge Nie Yuan back then, but now that he knew of the relationship between the Divine Might Marquis Nie Yuan and his cheapskate father, he didn't dare be presumptuous anymore. If his mother found out about this, she would definitely not let him off. Yes, father. Little Tian is right. Nie Yuan also came back to his senses. He looked at Duan Lingtian and laughed heartily. The shock that this nephew of his had brought to him came wave after wave, one after another. An 18-year-old 9th-level core formation martial artist. An 18-year-old 9th-grade alchemist. Any one of these halos was sufficient to shake the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom and make everyone admire them. And now, these two halos had appeared on the youth in front of him at the same time. Ru Feng, if you were still alive, I'm afraid you would wake up laughing in your sleep, right? Nie Yuan sighed inwardly. Then I'll call you Little Tian from now on, and you can call me Grandpa Nie. How does that sound? The old man smiled at Duan Lingtian. Grandpa Nie. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief and smiled at the old man. Nie Fen stood at the side and looked at Duan Lingtian. Up until now, he still hadn't recovered from his shock. The shock that Duan Lingtian gave him was too great. Under the invitation of the Divine Might Marquis Estate's grandfather and grandson, Duan Lingtian stayed at the Divine Might Marquis Estate for a meal. Little Tian, is your mother in the Imperial City as well? Nie Yuan asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Have you, return to the Duan clan? Nie Yuan seemed to have thought of something and asked. No. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Then you? Nie Yuan was dazed. I bought a courtyard house in the inner city and my family lives there. Duan Lingtian smiled. You killed that Duan Lingxing this time and revealed a strength at the 9th level of the core formation stage. With your current natural talent, the Duan clan ought to have sent someone to invite you back, right? Nie Yuan's eyes flickered. He was extremely clear about the matters of those great clans. The natural talent that Duan Lingtian revealed now was sufficient for the Duan clan to put down their pride and rope him in. Uncle Nie has godlike foresight. The Duan clan did indeed send someone to persuade me, but I refused. Duan Lingtian spoke extremely casually, and when he spoke of refusing to return to the Duan clan, there wasn't the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. It's good that you refused. The Duan clan actually forced you and your mother to leave that year. Now let them regret it. Nie Yuan didn't have any good impression of the Duan clan. My divine might marquee estate isn't small. Why don't you and your mother move in? There aren't many people in the imperial city who dare be presumptuous here. As he finished speaking, Nie Yuan had a face full of confidence. Uncle Nie, we're already used to our own courtyard house, so we won't trouble you. Duan Lingtian shook his head with a smile as he declined Nie Yuan's good intentions. Little Tian, you killed Duan Lingxing. That Duan Rulei probably won't let the matter go. Is it safe for you and your mother to live in that courtyard house? Do you need me to send someone to protect you? Nie Yuan was slightly worried. Don't worry, Uncle Nie, they don't have the ability to find that place. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had eaten his fill and stood up. Uncle Nie, thank you for the dinner. I ought to return now, otherwise my mother will be worried. I'll send you off. Nie Yuan stood up as well, and together with Nie Fen, they sent Duan Lingtian out of the Divine Might Marquee estate. Meanwhile, the pupils of the few guards at the entrance of the Divine Might Marquee estate couldn't help but constrict. Who the heck is this youth? He's actually able to make the Marquee father and son personally send him off. Uncle Nie, big brother Nie, I'll be leaving first. Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Nie Yuan and Nie Fen, then his figure flashed, as if transforming into a spirit serpent as he scuttled to the end of the street and vanished. Father, I truly never imagined that Uncle Ru Feng's son would be even more heaven-defying than him all those years ago. Only when Duan Lingtian's figure vanished before his eyes did Nie Fen react and sigh with emotion. An 18-year-old 9th-level core formation martial artist, a grade 9 alchemist. Moreover, the tenacity of his disposition is even greater than brother Ru Feng all those years ago. Most importantly, after he found out about the relationship between me and his father, he even intentionally avoided arousing suspicion and wasn't willing to let me help him, as if he was afraid he would owe me a favor. Nie Yuan laughed bitterly. It's really been hard on this child these past few years. A favor? Nie Fen's expression froze. He helped grandfather cure the poison, so it seems that we owe him even more? Duan Lingtian circled around the inner city a few times and only returned home after he noticed that no one was following him. He still sighed with emotion when he recalled what happened today. The Divine Might Marquee estate. In the past he still had the intention of using it. But now, after he found out about the relationship between the Divine Might Marquee Nie Yuan and his deadbeat father, he instead dispelled the thought of using the Divine Might Marquee estate. Although if he had the Divine Might Marquee estate to rely on, then most of the problems he faced now would be easily solved. However, he wasn't willing to do so. His gaze wasn't limited to this tiny Crimson Sky Kingdom. In the future he would walk out of the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to an even vaster world. At that time, it would be impossible for him to have an existence similar to the Divine Might Marquee estate to rely on. So now he'd taken the problems he faced as his touchstone. Everything would be solved by himself, and not by relying on others. Only when he was strong himself would he be truly strong. Of course, Duan Lingtian wasn't a stubborn person. If he really needed to use his trump card, the Divine Might Marquee estate, he would use it appropriately. Duan Lingtian had just returned home. The three beauties in his home came up to greet him with faces full of worry. His mother, Li Ro, was the first to ask. Tian, why did you return so late today? Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Mom, I was invited to dinner by Uncle Nie. Uncle Nie? Li Ro wasn't able to react for a moment. The Divine Might Marquee estate's Divine Might Marquee Nie Yuan. Duan Lingtian said. Big brother Nie Yuan? Li Ro was shocked, then a light smile appeared on her face. So many years have passed, and he has already inherited the title of Divine Might Marquee. It's rare that he still has the heart to invite you over as soon as he heard of you. Li Ro knew as well that this son of hers was now famous throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city. It could be said that there was no one who didn't know of him. The following 10 days were calm and tranquil. Besides the Duan clan sending people to wait at the entrance of Paladin Academy to persuade Duan Lingtian and make numerous promises that were successively rejected by Duan Lingtian. During these 10 days, Duan Lingtian didn't encounter anything special. The Duan clan's second master, Duan Rulei, and the imperial family's fifth prince seemed to have completely vanished without a trace overnight. At dusk, after Duan Lingtian separated from Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, he didn't return home but instead headed towards the third prince's estate. The invitation the third prince ordered someone to give him was withdrawn from his spatial ring and stuffed into his pocket. They passed by a secluded alley. Suddenly, hiss hiss, hiss hiss, two small heads popped out from Duan Lingtian's sleeve. A little black snake and a little white snake were currently flicking their tongues as they moved their eyes to stare at Duan Lingtian, and the gold and silver horns on their heads flickered with a faint sheen. "You two little fellows, behave yourselves." Duan Lingtian put away the two little pythons into his sleeve before continuing forward. For safety's sake, he intentionally brought the little white snake along with him when he left today. It was equivalent to having two fourth-level nascent soul stage bodyguards. Moreover, with the little white snake and little black snake's speed and body size that were almost negligible, even a fifth-level origin core stage martial artist might die at their hands if he was slightly careless. Although the third prince's estate was spacious, it looked simple and unadorned from the outside. The third prince's estate was not far away. "Go!" A shout sounded out from afar, followed by a wave of deafening sounds of horse hooves. Duan Lingtian glanced over. He saw a blue-clothed young man spurring a Fergana horse over, and his target was the third prince's estate as well. Duan Lingtian's face sank. Chapter 163. Duan Lingtian's gaze turned cold as he faced the charging Fergana horse. He clenched his right fist tightly and his muscles bulged. If the other party really drove his horse over, he wouldn't mind sending the other party and his horse flying. The Fergana horse was only a few meters away from Duan Lingtian. Nay, the young man on the Fergana horse instantly tightened his grip on the reins, and the Fergana horse stopped 1 meter away from Duan Lingtian. The young man arrogantly glanced at Duan Lingtian and said in a condescending tone, "Kid, you've got guts? You're lucky. If this wasn't the entrance of the third prince's mansion, you would have already been sent flying by my crimson blood. You'd be dead for sure." Crimson blood was what the young man called his Fergana horse. The meaning behind the young man's words was that he had some misgivings at the entrance of the third prince's mansion. Otherwise, Duan Lingtian would have already been knocked to death by him. Duan Lingtian calmly looked at the young man, and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. "Your luck isn't bad either." As the young man revealed a puzzled expression, Duan Lingtian turned around and walked towards the entrance of the third prince's mansion. Just as he said, the young man's luck was indeed not bad. If the young man hadn't stopped just now, he would have already been sent flying along with his horse. Duan Lingtian still had this bit of confidence. "Lowly commoner." The young man coldly snorted and overtook Duan Lingtian, arriving at the entrance of the third prince's mansion before him. The young man dismounted and handed the reins to a servant of the third prince's mansion. He then handed over an invitation to a middle-aged man who looked like a manager. Under the orders of the middle-aged manager, another servant and the young man walked into the mansion and led the way for the young man. "Guest, please show your invitation." At this time, Duan Lingtian had also arrived at the entrance of the third prince's mansion. The middle-aged manager had a smile on his face, and he didn't dare to underestimate Duan Lingtian. The young man that had already entered the estate turned around, and when he saw it was that violet-clothed youth again, he couldn't help but sneer. "Kid, not just anyone has the qualifications to enter the third prince's estate. If you don't have an invitation, then hurry up and go home to drink milk." Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows. There was a hint of anger in his eyes. This person had provoked him time and time again. Did he really think that he was easy to bully? Looking at the back of the young man swaggering away before his eyes, Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer. He reached into his bosom and took out the invitation. "Duan Lingtian? So you are young Master Lingtian." After reading the invitation, the middle-aged man's eyes lit up. His face was filled with humility and reverence. The third prince had instructed that if this young man came, he must receive him with the highest level of respect. He did not dare to be negligent. "Young Master Lingtian, this way please." The middle-aged manager took a deep breath and personally led the way for Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian indifferently nodded, then followed behind the middle-aged manager and walked into the third prince's estate. He's Duan Lingtian? Only that Duan Lingtian, who recently rose to fame in the imperial city, is able to make the manager personally lead the way. The young man that entered before seems to be the #1 disciple of the Su clan's branch family, Su Lan, right? He seemed to be mocking Duan Lingtian earlier. Although that Su Lan's strength isn't low in terms of natural talent, he can't compare to Duan Lingtian. A few servants whispered to each other. Along the way, Duan Lingtian noticed that this third prince should be a person who knew how to live. Such a large estate was filled with exotic flowers and rare herbs. There were even some rare medicinal herbs. Under the middle-aged manager's lead, Duan Lingtian quickly arrived at a spacious artificial lake in the inner courtyard. Currently, the sky was gradually darkening, but a building that stood in the center of the artificial lake was brightly lit. Occasionally, laughter could be heard, and it was extremely lively. The Su clan's young master Su Lan has arrived. Before long, a sonorous voice sounded from the front. Su Lan. Duan Lingtian's eyebrows raised. The young man that provoked him earlier was actually a member of the Su clan? No wonder he was so arrogant. However, Xiao Sun seemed to have said that the 3 great clans of the imperial city had always prohibited direct descendant disciples from participating in the struggle for imperial power. In this case, this Su Lan shouldn't be a direct descendant of the Su clan. Greetings to the third prince and princess Bai Yao. Under the middle-aged manager's lead, Duan Lingtian had just walked onto the wooden bridge that led to the building in the center of the lake when he heard Su Lan's humble and respectful voice. Princess Bai Yao? Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. Presently, he had already been in the imperial city for a few months, and knew many things about the imperial city in detail. Princess Bai Yao was the current emperor's most beloved daughter. She was also publicly acknowledged as the #1 beauty in the imperial city. The #1 beauty in the imperial city? I wonder how she compares to my family's Ker and Little Fei? Curiosity arose in Duan Lingtian's heart. No matter if it was Ker or Li Fei, they were both top-notch beauties he'd seen since arriving in this world. Among the women he'd seen, only the Xiao clan's Xiao Lan, Xiao Yu's little sister that was as beautiful as a celestial maiden, could compare to them. Besides her, he'd never seen another woman that could be mentioned in the same breath as these 2 women. Your Highness, young Master Lingtian has arrived. The middle-aged manager's footsteps were steady as he brought Duan Lingtian to the building in the center of the lake and spoke respectfully. Instantly, the gaze of the young man that sat at the head of the building in the center of the lake abruptly lit up. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian walked into the building in the center of the lake as well. With a single glance, an amiable-looking young man in a golden robe sat at the head of the table. The young man was around 26 or 27 years old and had a dignified expression between his brows. He'd inherited the dignity of a member of the imperial family. Third prince. Duan Lingtian guessed the identity of this person and lightly nodded with a smile, which could be considered as a greeting. Audacious. Right at this moment, the old man that stood behind the golden-robed young man frowned and shouted in a stern voice. The terrifying voice was condensed from origin energy, and it directly pierced into Duan Lingtian's eardrums. Duan Lingtian's formidable spiritual force instantly dispelled this voice. His expression didn't change as he calmly swept the old man with his gaze before looking at the young girl that sat on the right side of the third prince. The young girl's age was similar to his, around the age of 18. She had bright eyes, white teeth, and an extraordinary bearing. Beautiful hair that draped over her shoulders fell behind her like a waterfall. Her pretty cheeks caused one to be unable to refrain from feeling pity with a single glance. Her small mouth that was like a cherry even caused one to have the desire to kiss and suck on it. In terms of appearance, this young girl wasn't inferior to Ker and Li Fei. As expected of the #1 beauty in the imperial city. She's comparable to my family's Ker and Little Fei. Duan Lingtian quickly recovered from his shock and lightly smiled to the young girl. Princess Bai Yao. From Duan Lingtian greeting the third prince to being fiercely shouted at by the old man to bowing to Princess Bai Yao, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. The old man's eyes emitted surprise and bewilderment. A mere 9th-level core formation martial artist was actually able to block his origin energy condensed from origin energy. This caused him to feel slight disbelief. Ah! The third prince laughed heartily. I've long since heard of Brother Lingtian's great name. Now that I've met you today, you really do deserve your reputation. I originally thought that Brother Ling Tian might not pay attention to my invitation, but I never imagined that Brother Ling Tian would really come. You've truly given me a pleasant surprise. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled. Third Prince is too kind. I'm only an ordinary person, and being able to be invited by Third Prince is my honor. Brother Ling Tian is so young, yet so neither servile nor overbearing. It's truly hard to come by. Brother Ling Tian, please sit. The Third Prince abruptly stood up and invited Duan Ling Tian to the seat on the left side of the head seat. This seat was obviously intentionally left empty. Thank you, Third Prince. Duan Ling Tian wasn't courteous and directly sat down. At this moment, numerous burning gazes descended onto Duan Ling Tian from the seats below. The owners of these gazes were basically all young men between the ages of 20 to 25. All of them revealed arrogant gazes, and looking at their clothes and temperaments, they were obviously people of extraordinary birth. They were originally curious about who the Third Prince intentionally prepared a seat on the side of the head seat was actually left for. Now they came to a sudden understanding. So it turned out that it was left for this youth whose reputation had recently risen in the imperial city. On one side of the Third Prince's head seat was Princess Bai Yao, and on the other side was Duan Ling Tian. No one would say anything if Princess Bai Yao sat there. But Duan Ling Tian. Presently, many of the young geniuses present had unswerving gazes. Of course, they didn't dare to make things difficult for the Third Prince. Numerous gazes descended onto Duan Ling Tian, and they were extremely unfriendly. Duan Ling Tian naturally noticed these gazes, but he didn't mind. His gaze landed on Su Lan in the distance. At this moment, Su Lan's gaze was slightly unnatural. He never would have thought that the violet-clothed youth he met outside the Third Prince's estate was actually the Duan Ling Tian that had recently given rise to much discussion in the imperial city. However, when he recalled a matter he heard 2 days ago, he calmed down in his heart. His gaze was fierce and without the slightest trace of fear. He looked straight at Duan Ling Tian. So you're that Duan Ling Tian. I heard that the Duan clan has repeatedly invited you back, but you've always refused. No wonder you don't even have a decent horse and can only walk to the Third Prince's estate. Su Lan looked at Duan Ling Tian and his brows raised as he spoke indifferently, and his words were filled with ridicule. The Third Prince attaching so much importance to Duan Ling Tian caused him to feel a wave of displeasure in his heart. Now it was as if he'd found a vent. I've heard of this matter as well. I was wondering why a direct descendant of the Duan clan would attend the Third Prince's banquet. So it turns out that he's already taken the initiative to leave the Duan clan. Brother Ling Tian, what courage. A blue-clothed youth that sat across from Su Lan narrowed his eyes into a line. Although he addressed Duan Ling Tian as a brother, the ridicule within his words was something that anyone present could discern. The deeds of Duan Ling Tian had recently given rise to much discussion in the imperial city, and all the young geniuses present had more or less heard of it. If Duan Ling Tian was still a direct descendant of the Duan clan, they might be somewhat fearful of him. However, Duan Ling Tian refused to return to the Duan clan. Without the support of the Duan clan, even if his natural talent was strong, even if he stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage at the age of 18, so what? The Crimson Sky Kingdom never lacked geniuses. Chapter 164. Princess Bai Yao gazed at Duan Ling Tian. Her clear eyes that were like water were incomparably calm when Duan Ling Tian had just appeared, but now traces of ripples had appeared within them. This youth was completely different from the people she usually saw. Now, when faced with the mockery and ridicule of others, he was still able to stay out of it and remain indifferent. It was difficult to imagine that a youth would actually have such terrifying mental fortitude. Young Master Duan, Bai Yao has heard of your deeds since long ago, and I admire you greatly in my heart. Bai Yao uses tea as wine to toast you. Finally, Princess Bai Yao spoke, and her voice that was like a silver bell suppressed the mockery and ridicule of the crowd of young geniuses towards Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian's gaze slightly flickered. He was able to discern that this Princess Bai Yao was helping him. Now even the host, the Third Prince, was watching coldly from the sidelines and didn't speak. This Princess Bai Yao is really pure. Being able to stay true to herself in the scheming and deceitful imperial family is hard to come by. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Then he picked up his wine cup and nodded to Princess Bai Yao. Downing the wine in the cup in one gulp, he laughed heartily. I've long since heard that Princess Bai Yao is the #1 beauty in the imperial city. Now that I've met you today, your reputation is well deserved. I wonder who has the fortune of marrying Princess Bai Yao as his wife in the future. It would absolutely be that person's good fortune accumulated from 3 lifetimes. Young Master Duan must be joking. Even though Princess Baiyao was used to hearing flattery, she couldn't help but blush at this moment, and her heartbeat slightly sped up as well. Seeing Duan Lingtian and Princess Baiyao chatting happily as if there was no one there, the jealous gazes of the young geniuses present when they looked at Duan Lingtian deepened by a bit. Today I'm indebted to everyone for coming to this banquet. Let me toast everyone. The third prince, who'd been silently waiting for the situation to develop, noticed that the atmosphere wasn't right, and he raised his wine cup to break this atmosphere that was filled with sour jealousy. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a slight arc. This third prince is really not a simple figure. Right now, he even had some suspicions that the third prince had intentionally been testing him from the moment he had sat in this seat. However, he couldn't figure it out. If the third prince was really testing him, what was the point of him doing this? Gently shaking his head, Duan Lingtian stopped thinking about it. In any case, he was here to eat and drink for free today. What did other things have to do with him? As long as these people didn't cross the line, he would just treat them as a bunch of mad dogs barking. If he went too far, he was not someone to be trifled with. When he thought up to here, a strand of dense cold light flashed within Duan Lingtian's calm eyes. During the banquet, most of the young geniuses present were trying to strike up a conversation with Princess Baiyao. Perhaps, in their opinion, if they were able to embrace this beauty, they would be able to achieve a meteoric rise and soar into the heavens. After all, Princess Baiyao was the emperor's most beloved daughter. If he could become the emperor's son-in-law, it would mean that he could save 30 years of hard work. Only Duan Lingtian continued to drink and eat. In his eyes, the pretentiousness of a group of young talents was no different from a monkey show. The surprise in the third prince's eyes was even greater. He discovered that this Duan Lingtian was even more unfathomable than he had imagined. He originally thought that even if a mere youth had a high natural talent in the martial Tao, he was still inexperienced and could be made use of. However, at this moment, he instead realized that the youth's wisdom surpassed any of the young geniuses he'd invited. Even he was somewhat unable to see through this youth. He suddenly felt that if he wanted to control this youth, it was practically impossible. Brother Lingtian. The third prince suddenly spoke. A wise light flashed within his eyes. As soon as the third prince spoke, the building at the center of the lake became completely silent. Even the group of young talents that were displaying their elegance in front of Princess Baiyao had now restrained themselves. Their gazes once again descended onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian originally thought that he would be able to eat and drink in peace, then leave without a care in the world, but now, when he noticed the trace of a smile on the corners of the third prince's mouth, his heart jolted as he suddenly had an ominous premonition. As expected, the third prince looked at Duan Lingtian and lightly smiled. Speaking of which, this sister of mine has now reached the age of marriage. The person she admires the most in her life is your father, Duan Ruffing, the peerless genius whose name spread throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom in the past. She even took him to be her idol. She even once boasted that if she were to marry in this lifetime, she would surely marry a figure that was as outstanding as Duan Ruffing. In my opinion, the elegance that Brother Lingtian has displayed now surpasses your father's in the past. The third prince's words seemed to have a hidden meaning, and he glanced ambiguously at Duan Lingtian. Third brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Princess Bayao's beautiful face froze, and she was completely stunned. When did she say something like this? In next to no time she noticed. The gazes that all the young talents present looked at Duan Lingtian now seemed to contain a sense of hostility. The intelligent her understood her third brother's intentions at the first possible moment. She was slightly enraged in her heart, but in the end, due to their sibling relationship, she didn't expose it in the end. When she saw Duan Lingtian looking at her with a puzzled expression, the corners of her mouth curled into a bitter smile, and she lightly shook her head. When Duan Lingtian looked at Princess Baiyao, he saw the innocence in Princess Bayao's eyes, and at the same time he felt Princess Bayao's helplessness. In an instant he understood the third prince's intentions. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Is this third prince so amiable and easy to get along with? For the first time, a trace of disgust arose in his heart towards the third prince. However, he didn't expose it, as he wasn't the slightest bit afraid of the gazes of jealousy and hatred that descended onto him. He looked at the third prince and lightly smiled. If it's like this, then I hope third prince can slightly grant me and your sister's wish, and allow me to accompany her for a stroll around this lake. How about it? The third prince's expression froze. Never had he imagined that this Duan Lingtian's face would be so thick, to actually take advantage of the situation. Just when he was slightly at a loss for words. Duan Lingtian, who do you think you are, actually daring to be so presumptuous in front of the third prince? Su Lan's face went grim as he shouted in a low voice, as if he wanted to be in the limelight in front of the third prince and Princess Biao. You're called Su Lan, right? Duan Lingtian's brows raised, and his gaze descended onto Su Lan as he asked indifferently. That's right, I'm Su Lan. Su Lan raised his head with an arrogant expression. Su Lan, who do you think I am? But I wonder who you are? I'm talking to the third prince, and the third prince hasn't even opened his mouth, yet you've already seized the limelight. Looks like you completely don't place the third prince in your eyes. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a trace of an evil smile, and his voice gradually became louder. As he finished speaking, he was imposing and awe-inspiring. Instantly, Su Lan was terrified to the point his face went ghastly pale. Third prince, I didn't mean it that way. Su Lan looked at the third prince and hurriedly explained, and it was simply as if he was trying to hide something. The third prince glanced at Su Lan, and within his calm gaze was a trace of displeasure mixed within, but he quickly recovered his amiable and approachable appearance. Duan Lingtian became vigilant. This third prince was simply a smiling tiger. This kind of person was extremely terrifying. Their words were honey-mouthed and their hearts were filled with daggers. Brother Lingtian, I naturally have no objections to what you said. The third prince slowly spoke. When Princess Biao heard what the third prince said, her heartbeat abruptly sped up, and she secretly glanced at Duan Lingtian as a wisp of crimson appeared on her beautiful face. Do I really want to tour the lake with him? However, the gaze Duan Lingtian looked at the third prince didn't change from the beginning until the end. Because he discerned from the third prince's gaze that it was impossible for the third prince to agree so readily. As expected, the third prince's gaze then descended onto the other young geniuses present. But in this way it would be slightly unfair to everyone present. In this way, in Cloud Continent, the strong are respected, and most of the young geniuses present are first-rate figures at the 9th level of the core formation stage. Brother Lingtian, if you're able to defeat them and make them wholeheartedly convinced, I presume they wouldn't have any objections. Everyone, what do all of you think? The third prince's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian for a moment before moving on to the group of people present. Third prince is wise. Exactly. Instantly, all the young geniuses rubbed their palms together, seeming as if they wanted to show off in front of the third prince and Princess Biao. Third prince, although we're all at the 9th level of the core formation stage like Duan Lingtian, he has a grade 7 spirit weapon after all. If he were to rely on the might of his spirit weapon, it would seem to be slightly unfair. A few astute people couldn't help but speak out. It was widely rumored that the reason Duan Lingtian was able to kill Duan Lingxing, who was at the same cultivation level as him, was because of the grade 7 spirit weapon in his possession. This point wasn't a secret within the imperial city. Noticing the third prince looking over, the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile. Then I won't use a spirit weapon. Brother Lingtian is straightforward as expected. Then it's like this, those who compete with Brother Lingtian are not allowed to use any external strength. The third prince laughed heartily, and a trace of a scheming light flashed within his eyes. Everyone present, including him, didn't think that after Duan Lingtian lost his grade 7 spirit weapon, he would still be able to firmly suppress other 9th level core formation martial artists. Normally speaking, when martial artists of the same cultivation level battle, their strength would be the same. The only difference was the martial skill level. Only with a high martial skill level would one be able to gain the upper hand. Now, the group of young geniuses he invited were practically all genius martial artists between the ages of 20 and 25, and had cultivated martial skills for many years. In terms of martial skills, they weren't inferior to Duan Lingtian in the slightest. Third brother. Princess Biao had been enduring since the beginning, but now, when she saw Duan Lingtian become the public enemy of the young geniuses present under the third prince's deliberate guidance, she was angered to the point her beautiful face flushed red, and she couldn't help but speak out. Her patience had reached its limit. Biao, don't worry, it's only a spar. Your sweetheart will be fine. The third prince lightly smiled, and as he finished speaking, he intentionally emphasized his tone. The expressions of the young geniuses present went grim when they heard this. Chapter 165. Sweetheart? Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face went pale. Princess, it's just as third prince said, it's only a spar. You don't have to worry. Just when Princess Bai Yao was about to refute, Duan Lingtian spoke first and stopped her. Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face froze, and her pair of watery eyes spun with flowing lights that converged onto Duan Lingtian's body with a trace of bewilderment mixed within. Duan Lingtian nodded to Princess Bai Yao, then opened his mouth and mouthed, "Don't worry." This was what Duan Lingtian mouthed. Princess Bai Yao's expression eased up slightly when she saw this, and she once again sat back down. She was extremely curious, where did this youth that was similar in age to her get such strong confidence from? Duan Lingtian was very straightforward, and his figure flashed to descend onto an empty space in the building at the center of the lake. Who's going to be the first? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as his gaze swept past the young geniuses present. Presently, these people were eager to give it a try, as if every single one of them wanted to step on him to get to the top. "I'll do it." Accompanied by a light shout, an azure-clothed young man descended onto the arena and looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. The person that entered the arena was none other than Su Lan, Third Prince. Meanwhile, Su Lan looked at Third Prince and said respectfully, as the saying goes, fists and feet have no eyes. I'm both at the 9th level of the core formation stage as Duan Lingtian, and only by fighting with all our strength can we determine a victor. At that time, if there's a casualty, then it's something that can't be avoided. Third Prince's eyes focused as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, what do you think? Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. Of course. Princess Bai Yao's face went pale once more when she heard Third Prince. Just when she wanted to speak, she noticed that Duan Lingtian gave her a reassuring gaze. Although she didn't speak again, there was still a trace of worry in her eyes. When she first saw Duan Lingtian, although Duan Lingtian was extraordinarily handsome, she did not have any reaction. She had seen too many handsome men. When she saw Duan Lingtian still maintain a calm and composed smile when facing the ridicule of the group of young geniuses, she realized that Duan Lingtian's smile had affected her, as if it had tugged at the string in her heart. He had never had such a feeling before. Now that she saw that Duan Lingtian was in danger, she broke out in cold sweat for the Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, I will kill you. The corners of Su Lan's mouth curled into a sneer as he looked at Duan Lingtian. He opened his mouth, and although he didn't make a sound, Duan Lingtian was able to clearly see the shape of his mouth. You want me to die? Duan Lingtian didn't mind. In this world there were many people that wanted him dead, but wasn't he still alive and well? One must know one's limits. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth held a smile as a trace of a bright light flashed within his eyes as he spoke indifferently. What he said was extremely sudden. Amongst the people present, only Su Lan was able to understand the meaning behind Duan Lingtian's words. Su Lan's face sank as he burst into rage. You're courting death. Instantly, Su Lan's eyes went cold, and his figure moved as if transforming into a cheetah as he charged towards Duan Lingtian. Everywhere he passed, the curtains at the side of the buildings at the center of the lake rustled as if they were being blown by a strong wind. 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Su Lan. He exerted his full strength the moment he attacked. The movement technique Su Lan executed now was obviously a high-grade profound rank movement technique at the perfection stage, and his speed almost reached the limit of the 9th level of the core formation stage. Of course, this was only relative to an ordinary 9th level core formation stage martial artist. Duan Lingtian wasn't within this category. The Third Prince sat at the head seat as he watched this scene with a smile on his face, and a strand of dense cold light flickered within the depths of his eyes. Even though it was the first time he'd met Duan Lingtian. However, he felt a trace of threat from Duan Lingtian. He had a sudden premonition that Duan Lingtian's existence would very likely become an obstacle to his ascension to the throne. So now he wished for nothing more than for Su Lan to kill Duan Lingtian. Princess Bai Yao clenched her fists tightly, not daring to close her eyes as her heart rose to her throat. At this moment, only the violet-clothed youth that stood there without moving like a mountain remained in her eyes. Crush. In the blink of an eye, Su Lan arrived before Duan Lingtian, and when he saw Duan Lingtian not moving in the slightest, the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Great net palm. High-grade profound rank martial skill. Opening his hand, his origin energy skyrocketed, and palm images that covered the sky howled as they descended, enveloping Duan Lingtian. Su Lan's attack was about to descend onto Duan Lingtian. No! Princess Bai Yao exclaimed in surprise as she abruptly stood up. This Duan Lingtian is truly arrogant. The same thought arose within the hearts of the remaining group of young geniuses, and the corners of their mouths curled into cold smiles. They all thought that Duan Lingtian would die for sure. A smile bloomed on the third prince's face as well. Su Lan's eyes emitted madness. As far as he was concerned, once his palm descended, this youth that caused him to be envious would completely vanish from this world. Instantly, a trace of delight appeared on the corners of his mouth. At the critical moment, Duan Lingtian's body lightly trembled, and the strength of nearly 13 ancient mammoths exploded forth. Above him, only 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. Greater teleportation. The defensive martial skill was circulated. At the instant Su Lan's palm descended, a layer of defensive qi appeared on the surface of Duan Lingtian's body. Bang! Su Lan's palm descended, and it just happened to slap onto Duan Lingtian's defensive qi. Ah! In almost an instant, Su Lan emitted a shrill cry, and his right hand that struck out with his palm was forcefully torn apart at the shoulder by the force of the teleportation. His hand flew far away and with a plop, it fell into the artificial lake. At this moment, the defensive qi on the surface of Duan Lingtian's body shook and shattered into pieces. Duan Lingtian's face flushed red. Although he had the defensive qi protecting his body, Su Lan's palm strike that relied on the strength of 12 ancient mammoths wasn't so easy to withstand, and there was still a portion of it that affected his body. Fortunately, the strength of his fleshly body's vital energy and blood far exceeded that of an ordinary martial artist. Otherwise, when Su Lan's palm descended, even if he exerted the strength of nearly 13 ancient mammoths and derived a defensive qi, his internal organs would surely be shaken and injured. A defensive martial skill was able to completely offset an offensive martial skill of the same cultivation level, but it was only relative to a lower-level martial artist. At the 9th level of the core formation stage, the existence of a defensive qi barrier that easily possessed the strength of over 10 ancient mammoths was no longer so exaggerated. Star transposition. Everyone present, including the third prince and the old man behind him, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. They were able to discern that the defensive martial skill Duan Lingtian executed was precisely the Shao clan's strongest defensive martial skill, star transposition. They were slightly absent-minded. How could Duan Lingtian know star transposition that the Shao clan didn't pass down to outsiders? Su Lan's body shook as his arm was severed. He was barely able to stand firm, but he was in an extremely sorry state. No. In the next moment, Su Lan's pupils constricted, and his face went ghastly pale as he let out a shrill cry. He saw that Duan Lingtian had moved. Currently, his most important right arm was crippled, and he was utterly unable to block Duan Lingtian. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Before everyone could recover from their shock, Duan Lingtian instantly closed in on Su Lan. Dragon's finishing touch. Duan Lingtian didn't even wave his hands to draw a dragon, but instead directly pointed out with his finger. A piercing howl sounded out as it flashed towards Su Lan's chest. Su Lan's face went serious as he desperately urged his defensive martial skill. A layer of defensive qi barrier appeared on the surface of his body. Defensive qi barrier? Is it of any use? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer. His finger descended, accompanied by an awe-inspiring strong wind, and it indeed encountered a considerable amount of resistance when it touched the defensive qi barrier on Su Lan's chest, however. Duan Lingtian exerted force once more, his finger piercing through the defensive qi barrier and directly pointing at Su Lan's heart. The terrifying force of his finger gushed in, instantly shattering Su Lan's heart. Bang! Su Lan's body trembled. His eyes stared wide open as he fell limp to the ground, completely devoid of any signs of life. Dead. Su Lan's corpse lay on the ground, fresh blood gushing out from his severed arm, beautiful and dazzling. I already told you. A person must know their limits. Duan Lingtian squatted down and extended his hand to help Su Lan close his eyes that were wide open in death. He pretended to sigh before standing up once more and looking at the distant group of young geniuses that had long since been scared to the point their faces were ghastly pale. Now, who wants to come down and give me some guidance? Duan Lingtian's cold gaze swept past these so-called young geniuses one by one. Instantly, the group of young geniuses looked at each other, but not a single one of them had the guts to stand out. They'd all witnessed Duan Lingtian's strength. If it was said that before this, they'd thought that Duan Lingtian's strength was relying on his grade 7 spirit weapon. Now, they understood that even if Duan Lingtian didn't use a spirit weapon, he still wasn't someone that an ordinary 9th level core formation martial artist could defeat. They glanced at Su Lan's corpse and felt a lingering fear in their hearts. They rejoiced that they didn't leave the battlefield before Su Lan did. Otherwise they could imagine that the ones who would surely die would be them. Third Prince, how about it? After disdainfully sweeping the group of so-called young geniuses with his gaze, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the Third Prince. Although the Third Prince still had a smile on his face, it was a smile that was slightly unnatural. I never imagined that Brother Ling Tian actually cultivated the Shao clan star shift. However, whether my sister is willing to tour the lake with you will depend on her own decision. Third Prince doesn't have to worry about that. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled, then his figure moved like a gust of wind to float to Princess Bai Yao's side. He extended his hand and domineeringly grabbed onto Princess Bai Yao's soft hand and pulled her up. Princess Bai Yao's delicate body trembled as if she'd been electrocuted, and her cheeks flushed red. It was the first time in her life that a man had held her hand like this. Princess, accompany me for a walk, how about it? Duan Ling Tian nodded to Princess Bai Yao and lightly smiled. Princess Bai Yao lightly nodded with a bashful expression. Chapter 166. The Third Prince took a deep breath, then coldly swept the remaining young geniuses with his gaze and said indifferently, "Everyone, today's banquet ends here. You can all disperse." The group of youths noticed the Third Prince's suppressed rage, and they respectfully replied before turning around and leaving. After walking out of the building at the center of the lake, Duan Ling Tian let go of Princess Bai Yao's hand and smiled apologetically. "Princess, I've offended you." Princess Bai Yao's heart trembled. Even she didn't know why, but when Duan Ling Tian let go of her hand, a trace of disappointment faintly arose in her heart. "It's fine." Princess Bai Yao lightly shook her head, and her cheeks were still crimson red. A pair of golden boy and jade girl began to leisurely stroll around the artificial lake. "I apologize on behalf of Third Brother for today's matter. Third Brother wasn't like this in the past and I don't know why he would target you like this." Princess Bai Yao lightly sighed. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a slight arc. Even he didn't know why the Third Prince would target him like this. How could he have known that the Third Prince had a suspicious nature? And after seeing how unfathomable he was and feeling unable to control him, the Third Prince subconsciously believed that Qin was a threat and wanted to get rid of him. Sometimes, as a member of the imperial family, it was that simple to get rid of a person and no reason was required. Subsequently, the two of them didn't speak as they silently circled around the man-made lake. "All right, Princess, I should return as well." Duan Ling Tian nodded with a smile to Princess Bai Yao. He had a rather good impression of this kind-hearted young girl. "Okay." Princess Bai Yao lightly nodded, then asked, "Will we meet again in the future?" "There will be a chance." Duan Ling Tian nodded, then turned around and left. Looking at Duan Ling Tian's disappearing figure from afar, Princess Bai Yao heaved a sigh of relief and faintly sighed. "Bai Yao, you can't like him." Unknowingly, a figure had appeared beside Princess Bai Yao. "Third Brother, why?" Princess Bai Yao looked at the Third Prince, and a trace of unwillingness appeared within her eyes. "He's not suitable for you." The Third Prince's answer was extremely simple. "Not suitable?" Bitterness surfaced on the corners of Princess Bai Yao's mouth as she shook her head. Soon after, her voice became much colder. "Thank you, Third Brother, for your hospitality these past few days. I will return to the Imperial Palace early in the morning tomorrow. Third Brother, please help me prepare." The Third Prince frowned. He could tell that his sister had really fallen for that young man. "Uncle Hu, clean it up. I don't want to leave any trouble behind." Suddenly, the Third Prince opened his mouth as if he was talking to the air. "Yes." An aged voice suddenly rang out. At the same time, an aged figure disappeared into the darkness of the night. After Duan Ling Tian left the Third Prince's mansion, he went back to his own house. "I didn't expect my charm to be so great," a self-deprecating smile appeared on his face. He was naturally able to see the feelings that Princess Bai Yao revealed when she looked at him. However, he didn't have any other intentions towards Princess Bai Yao. Perhaps it was because of Princess Bai Yao's complicated identity, or perhaps it was because of the two little girls at home. "I'll leave everything to fate." Shaking his head, Duan Ling Tian didn't think about it any further. After spending half an hour, Duan Ling Tian had already walked half the distance. Now he took a shortcut and walked into a remote alley. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian noticed that the two little pythons under his sleeve were slightly restless. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian stopped moving with a vigilant expression. Right at this moment, his formidable spiritual force faintly noticed that there seemed to be a pair of eyes staring at him from the shadows. Who is it? Duan Lingtian's expression couldn't help but change. Not bad. You're only at the 9th level of the core formation stage, yet you're able to notice my existence. Needless to say, you're very special. A hoarse voice sounded from the other end of the alley. Under the moonlight, the old man's face was completely revealed before Duan Lingtian's eyes. It's you. Duan Lingtian's expression changed. Wasn't the old man that stood behind the third prince tonight the same old man that stood behind the third prince? If I'm not wrong, there ought to be some secrets on your body. Even my origin energy condensed into sound was actually unable to harm you. It's truly strange. The old man slowly walked closer with a pair of eyes that flickered with a bright light and emitted a strange sheen. The third prince sent you here? Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. Relying on the experience of Samsara Emperor Wu and his spiritual force that was comparable to a nascent soul martial artist, he was able to faintly sense the old man's cultivation. Although this old man was inferior to the divine might Marquis Nye Yuan, he wasn't easy to deal with. He was at least a 7th level core formation martial artist, or even an 8th level core formation martial artist. The old man didn't answer Duan Lingtian and continued to slowly walk closer. I want to know the reason. Duan Lingtian's eyes flickered with a fierce light as he spoke in a suppressed and low voice. The reason is, you're too showy, causing His Highness to feel threatened. Also, you shouldn't have profaned the princess. The old man's voice seemed as if it came from the depths of hell and emitted a bone-piercing coldness. Showy? Shouldn't have profaned the princess? This is also a reason? Duan Lingtian's face sank. What was the difference between the third prince's actions and disregard for human life? Before this, although he realized that the third prince might not like him, he never imagined that the third prince would want his life. Slight anger appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. Then Duan Lingtian's icy cold gaze descended onto the old man as he coldly said, I'll give you a chance, leave as soon as possible. Otherwise you'll die without a doubt. Duan Lingtian only had 2 bone corrosion inscriptions in his possession that could annihilate an ordinary nascent soul martial artist, and he wasn't willing to waste one. That was a few millions of silver. Even if he only used one, his heart would ache for a long time. So he gave the old man a chance now. If the old man didn't know what was good for him, then no matter how much his heart ached for the sake of his life, he would still use the bone corrosion inscription and annihilate the old man. If money is gone, it can be earned again. If one's life is gone, then there's nothing left. Shameless boasting. Let me see how you take my life. The old man sneered. Obviously, he didn't take Duan Lingtian's words to heart, and only thought that Duan Lingtian was deliberately mystifying and stalling for time. Suddenly the old man moved. Swift like a bolt of lightning, attacking like the wind, as if transforming into a rock that flashed straight towards Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian felt a formidable aura sweep over, pressuring him to the point he couldn't catch his breath and was on the verge of suffocating. He could vaguely see that above the old man, 1,100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 8th level of the nascent soul stage. Duan Lingtian's face sank. Bang. The old man slapped out with his palm, and his origin energy slowly condensed to gradually condense into form. Since you want to seek death, then I'll fulfill your wish. Duan Lingtian grunted coldly, his hand flashed past his waist, and the violet myrtle flexible sword whistled out. At the instant the old man's palm condensed into form, Duan Lingtian activated the bone-devouring inscription on the violet myrtle flexible sword as well. Instantly, a strand of gray flowing light leaped about on the body of the violet myrtle flexible sword, and the flowing light was swift like a bolt of lightning as it flashed out. No! The old man's pupils constricted, and at the instant he reacted, the gray flowing light had already pierced into his body. In an instant. Ah! The old man's shrill and miserable cry caused even Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but feel a chill run down his spine when he heard it. This bone-devouring inscription was too overbearing. In the next moment, the old man's shrill cries stopped abruptly, and his body trembled as the origin energy in his body completely dispersed. Not only that, the old man's body seemed to have suddenly transformed into a pile of mud, instantly collapsing, and the bones in his entire body were completely corroded, transforming into nothingness. Even though Duan Lingtian had killed many people, he still felt nauseous at this moment. It was the first time he'd seen someone die in such a way. It was equivalent to the bones in his entire body turning into ashes, and only his skin and flesh remained. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian wasn't willing to take another look, and he directly ignited his pill flame, burning the old man's miserable corpse into ashes. In the end, Duan Lingtian found the old man's spatial ring from the ashes, and only then did he leave. On the way, Duan Lingtian claimed ownership of the spatial ring. F***K. When Duan Lingtian saw everything within the spatial ring, his face flushed red and he couldn't help but curse. Within the spatial ring, a large pile of silver bills were neatly arranged, and most of them were silver bills with a denomination of 10,000 silver. Duan Lingtian roughly estimated that the silver bills piled up within the spatial ring added up to at least 70 to 80 million silver. He wouldn't be the manager of the third prince's estate, right? Duan Lingtian was overjoyed in his heart as he guessed in his heart. Third prince, you've given me a generous gift this time. Duan Lingtian's face was suffused with a smile. Luckily this old fellow wasn't scared off by me earlier. Otherwise I would have brushed shoulders with these 70 to 80 million silver bills. Thinking of what happened earlier, Duan Lingtian had a lingering fear in his heart. He could imagine that if the old man knew of Duan Lingtian's current thoughts, even if he were to walk on the road to the netherworld, he would surely not be at peace. A single bone-eroding inscription is worth at most 3 million taels of silver. I've made a huge profit from this deal. On the way back, Duan Lingtian beamed with joy. Over 3 million silver in exchange for 70 to 80 million silver bills was a sizable profit, and it was one of a kind. That Duan Roulé is in charge of so many properties of the Duan clan. He surely has a shocking amount of wealth in his hands. If he doesn't have eyes and still comes looking for trouble with me, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer, and a trace of greed arose within his eyes. Tonight's matter had undoubtedly allowed him to taste the sweetness. And that fifth prince, his family's manager, surely has a lot of money, right? As he muttered to himself, Duan Lingtian realized that he had returned to the entrance of his home. Because Duan Lingtian had been notified beforehand, the three beauties at home weren't too worried about him. However, after Duan Lingtian returned, the two little girls still gathered around him, inquiring about what happened at the banquet with curious expressions. Duan Lingtian naturally wouldn't tell them the truth, or else they would be worried again. Chapter 167. Deep into the night, Duan Lingtian called Xiong Quan over and passed him a large pile of silver. Take these 50 million silver and continue to purchase the materials I asked you to buy last time. Duan Lingtian instructed. 50 million silver? Xiong Quan was stunned. Where did the young master get so much money? However, he was an intelligent person and didn't ask any questions as he respectfully put away the silver. Yes, young master. Duan Lingtian returned to his room and used the last batch of materials Xiong Quan bought last time to once again inscribe a bone corrosion inscription on the violet myrtle flexible sword. Today he could be considered to have completely experienced the might of the bone corrosion inscription. Even the old man beside the third prince, an existence at the 8th level of the nascent soul stage, didn't even have the time to react before being struck. The bones in his entire body turned into ashes, and he was deader than dead. To Duan Lingtian, the bone corrosion inscription was a life-saving talisman. He could imagine that if it wasn't for the bone corrosion inscription tonight, he would have already been killed by the old man beside the third prince. Third prince, I, Duan Lingtian, will remember your gift today. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed with a trace of a cold light. After catching his breath, Duan Lingtian cultivated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's Raging Python form until late into the night before falling asleep. The next morning, Duan Lingtian went to class in the Star Mastermind Department's classroom as usual. During this time someone came to look for Sima Changfeng. Sima Changfeng left for a while before returning. He looked at Duan Lingtian with a strange gaze. Duan Lingtian, come with me. Although Duan Lingtian felt it was strange, he still followed Sima Changfeng out. Teacher, did you call me out for something? Duan Lingtian asked, puzzled. Someone wants to see you, Sima Changfeng said. Just when Duan Lingtian was wondering who wanted to see him, Sima Changfeng had already brought him to an empty space at a corner of Paladin Academy. There was a luxurious carriage parked there. 2 old men stood on both sides of the carriage. Relying on the experience of the rebirth martial emperor and his formidable spiritual force, Duan Lingtian was able to determine that the strengths of these 2 old men weren't inferior to the old man he killed with the bone corrosion inscription last night. Go. Sima Changfeng nodded at Duan Lingtian. I'll wait for you here. Duan Lingtian walked over curiously. After getting into the carriage he was stunned. The person sitting in the carriage was none other than the third prince whom he had just met yesterday. However, after one night, the third prince's face was no longer full of smiles like yesterday. His face was gloomy. "Third prince, are you looking for me?" Duan Lingtian sat down in the carriage and frowned. "Duan Lingtian, let's not beat around the bush. After Hu Bo left last night, he didn't return. Was he killed by your men?" The third prince looked at Duan Lingtian. His gaze was like lightning as he stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian. He noticed all the changes on Duan Lingtian's face and was afraid that he would miss the slightest bit. Duan Lingtian had a surprised and puzzled expression when he heard this. "Third prince, who is Hu Bo?" The third prince frowned. He had been observing the changes in Duan Lingtian's expression, but he noticed that when he mentioned Hu Bo, there was nothing wrong with Duan Lingtian's expression. Could it be that it really had nothing to do with this Duan Lingtian? That was impossible. Yesterday he sent Hu Bo to kill this Duan Lingtian. However, after Hu Bo left, he didn't return. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. If it was only Hu Bo who went missing, then it would only be the loss of an 8th-level nascent soul martial artist. At most, the third prince would feel heartache for a while. But Hu Bo had another identity. He was the housekeeper of the third prince's estate and was in charge of his private wealth. What he urgently wanted to find now was the spatial ring on Hu Bo's hand. If he didn't have that spatial ring, then it would mean that the 70 to 80 million silver would be wasted, and his future days would be difficult. Although he was a prince, he usually had to rely on himself to pay for all the expenses of his own estate. Moreover, if he wanted to get more people to support his ascension to the throne in the future, then he would need to use that money to establish connections. "Third prince, why is your expression so unsightly? Did something happen?" Duan Lingtian had a surprised expression as he asked curiously. "Duan Lingtian, Hu Bo, if you killed him, then you killed him. I won't fuss about it. However, you must hand over Hu Bo's spatial ring. Otherwise you should know the consequences." The third prince's face was gloomy as he threatened. He still wanted to gamble and test whether the spatial ring was in Duan Lingtian's hands. "Third prince, what do you mean by this? Someone in your estate died and you want to blame it on my head?" Duan Lingtian's face sank as he flew into a rage. "As for the spatial ring you mentioned, I don't know anything about it. Goodbye." After he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian didn't look back as he got off the carriage and left directly. The third prince's face was extremely ugly. It really wasn't him? Then who was it? Hu Bo was his trusted aide. He firmly believed that if it wasn't for Hu Bo's accident, Hu Bo would definitely not disappear. "Once I find out who did it, no matter who it is, I will let him die without a burial place." The third prince, who usually appeared approachable in front of others, now had a sinister expression, as if he had turned into a demon. Soon, the third prince's luxurious carriage left under the gaze of Duan Lingtian and Sima Changfeng. "Duan Lingtian, why was the third prince looking for you?" Sima Changfeng curiously asked. "I don't know. He just told me something about Hu Bo's death and some spatial ring. It's inexplicable." Duan Lingtian shrugged his shoulders with an innocent expression. He wasn't surprised that the third prince came looking for him, but he didn't expect that the third prince's reaction would be so quick and so big. It seemed that those silvers, to the third prince, were a large sum of money, and even had an extraordinary significance. "Hu Bo. Spatial ring?" Sima Changfeng was stunned, then immediately speculated, "As far as I know, the steward of the third prince's estate is called Husan. Could it be that Husan is dead? Husan is the most trusted person of the third prince, and even controls the wealth of the third prince's estate. Could it be that after Husan died, the spatial ring in Husan's hand that stored the wealth of the third prince's estate also disappeared?" Duan Lingtian opened his eyes wide and pretended to be surprised. "It should be. It's good that you know about this matter, don't spread it out. Or else, it will attract unnecessary trouble. That third prince isn't someone easy to deal with." Sima Changfeng warned with a serious expression. "I know, teacher." Duan Lingtian hurriedly nodded, a bright light flashing in his eyes. The third prince was naturally not someone easy to deal with. He had already seen this at the banquet last night. Actually, the moment he saw the third prince today, he had already guessed the third prince's purpose for coming. When the third prince suddenly said that he had something to do with Husan's death, he had seen the third prince's burning gaze. He naturally guessed the third prince's purpose. Without a doubt, he wanted to test him to see if he was really related to Husan's disappearance. Unfortunately, the third prince wanted to make him reveal a flaw, but it was undoubtedly a waste of effort. As the weapon specialist of his previous life, how could he be fooled by such a small matter? Thinking of the third prince's last words, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh in his heart. The third prince wanted him to spit out the things he had eaten? Was that even possible? Duan Lingtian and Sima Changfeng returned to the classroom and continued with class. At noon after class, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun walked over. Duan Lingtian, why did teacher Sima ask you to go out earlier? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Nothing much, he just told me that there might be a battle at the northwest border at any time. He asked me if I would be interested if Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department sent someone there. Duan Lingtian repeated the words that Sima Changfeng had said to him 10 days ago. He took it as an excuse. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, however, believed it. Xiao Sun sighed. Logically speaking, if Paladin Academy really needs to send someone, only students of 3rd grade and above would have the opportunity to go. Teacher Sima asked you this because he undoubtedly intends to strongly recommend you to go when the time comes. Maybe. Duan Lingtian nodded. Duan Lingtian, did you gain anything when you attended the third prince's banquet yesterday? That third prince probably tried his best to rope you in, right? Xiao Yu recalled what happened yesterday and asked with a smile. Tried his best to rope him in? Duan Lingtian's expression was slightly unnatural. That third prince wished for nothing more than to kill him, yet still tried to rope him in? However, he naturally wouldn't say it out loud. He lightly smiled and said, my greatest gain yesterday was probably meeting the #1 beauty in the Imperial City. #1 beauty in the Imperial City? Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's eyes lit up. You met Princess Bai Yao? Duan Lingtian nodded. If I knew earlier, I would have gone with you to join in the fun yesterday. Xiao Yu had a face full of regret. You really wanted to join in the fun? Looks like the next time I see little Qian, I'll have to pass on these words to her. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into an evil smile. The little Qian he spoke of was precisely Lo Cheng's younger sister, Luo Qian. Xiao Yu rolled his eyes at Duan Lingtian and asked curiously, how is it? Is that Princess Bai Yao beautiful? Duan Lingtian nodded. Her reputation is well deserved. In terms of beauty, she's not inferior to your sister. Xiao Yu was slightly moved. He was well aware of the beauty of his sister, Xiaolan. She was absolutely a peerless beauty. What? Xiao Yu, your sister is actually a beauty that can compare to Princess Bai Yao? Xiao Sun's eyes shone as if he had transformed into a hungry wolf. Xiao Sun, don't even think about hitting on my sister. My sister already has someone in her heart. Xiao Yu shook his head and smiled. That's not a problem. I'll surely prove to her that I'm 10 times, no, 100 times stronger than the person in her heart. As far as Xiao Sun was concerned, the person Xiao Yu's sister took a fancy to should be someone from Aurora City. In terms of natural talent, strength and family background, that person couldn't catch up to him. As a direct descendant of the Imperial City Xiao clan, Xiao Sun had great confidence in this aspect. Are you sure you're 10 times, no, 100 times stronger than that person? Xiao Yu's gaze became slightly strange. What? In your Aurora City besides Duan Lingtian and you, there are other freaks? Xiao Sun's heart jerked as he asked curiously. Xiao Yu shook his head. Then what you mean is? Chapter 168. Xiao Sun was stunned, and when he reacted, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. It can't be, right? Xiao Yu's little sister's sweetheart is Duan Lingtian? If it was someone else, he might have the confidence to compare. But if it was Duan Lingtian, he knew his limits. The difference between him and Duan Lingtian was like heaven and earth. Comparing himself to Duan Lingtian was just looking for trouble. What are you two looking at me for? Duan Lingtian was still pondering about the matter of the third prince, but when he returned to his senses, he noticed that Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun were both staring at him. Is there a flower on my face? Duan Lingtian obviously didn't hear the conversation between Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. No. Xiao Sun shook his head and smiled. Come, let's go eat. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 arrived at the dining hall and waited for a while. The dishes were all served, but Su Li and Tian who still hadn't arrived. Why are they so late today? Xiao Sun had a bewildered expression and felt it was slightly strange. Something couldn't have happened, right? Duan Lingtian's brows lightly frowned. Su Li and Tian who had always been punctual, and there had never been anyone who hadn't arrived so late. He kept feeling that something wasn't right and his heart rose to his throat. Duan Lingtian. Just at this moment, a slightly hurried shout sounded out from outside the dining hall. approaching from afar. It's Jianghu. Why is it only him? With just a glance, Duan Lingtian recognized the person in the distance, and his brows raised as his figure moved to greet the person. Tianhu, where's Su Li? Quickly arriving before Tianhu, Duan Lingtian noticed that Tianhu's expression was extremely unsightly, and his heart jerked as he had a bad premonition, so he hurriedly asked. At this moment, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun followed out as well. Su Li. Hearing Duan Lingtian's question, the corners of Tianhu's mouth held a bitter smile and helplessness. He was stopped by the Su clan members. People from the Su clan? Could it be that Su Li had some sort of relationship with the Su clan? Duan Lingtian's face sank as if it was covered with a layer of frost. Let's go. Under Tianhu's lead, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 walked towards the bamboo forest behind Paladin Academy. Within the quiet bamboo forest, Su Li was lying on the ground. His aura was weak and it was obvious that he had suffered heavy injuries. It was even harder for him to stand up now. Even so, Su Li's eyes were still filled with a trace of coldness. He still held the 3-foot-long sword in his hand and didn't let go. Su Li's heart was as firm as a boulder. Even if he was humiliated, he was still unyielding. In front of Su Li there were 3 youths standing there. The leader was a young man in embroidered clothes who was around 25 years old. He was currently stepping on Su Li's hand that was holding the sword, and a cold smile appeared on his face. What? You're still not willing to let go of the sword in your hand at this time? Su Li, you're just like your father. Both of you are trash. It would have been fine if you had obediently stayed in the countryside, but you just had to return to the imperial city and even appear before my eyes. Aren't you courting death? What? Still glaring at me? You're not convinced? The young man in embroidered clothes became angry when he saw Su Li's cold gaze, and he raised his leg and directly kicked Su Li's face. Instantly, blood bloomed on Su Li's face like a dazzling rose, dazzling and resplendent. Su Tong, 10 years. I'll surely kill you within 10 years. A wisp of coldness appeared on the corners of Su Li's mouth, and his voice revealed icy coldness, as if it came from the depths of hell. Su Li's voice was mixed with boundless confidence. 10 years? The young man in embroidered clothes was stunned, then he started laughing. A wisp of an evil smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Su Li, do you think that you can defeat me in 10 years? Although I'm not afraid of you. But you've really reminded me. I indeed don't dare to kill you in Paladin Academy. But I'm very curious. If I cripple your Dantian, how will you kill me in 10 years and on what basis will you kill me? Now I'll destroy all of your hopes. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man in embroidered clothes seemed to be more and more interested the more he thought about it, and he intended to raise his leg and give Su Li's Dantian a kick. Su Li's pupils constricted, and a trace of despair was faintly suffused within him. If his Dantian was really crippled, then it would mean that his entire life was completely ruined. No. Su Li's heart was filled with unwillingness. Su Li's breathing became hurried when he saw the young man raise his leg. He wanted to struggle and dodge, but he noticed that he had no strength in his body and had nowhere to dodge. Right at this moment. Brother Tong, that companion of Su Li's, has come again. He even brought back 3 people, and 2 of them seemed to be Duan Lingtian and the Xiao clan's Xiao Sun. A young man behind Su Tong noticed the 4 figures that swiftly flashed over from afar. Duan Lingtian? Xiao Sun? A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Su Tong's mouth, and his gaze descended onto the 4 people that approached menacingly from afar, and he muttered. He's finally come. Su Li. Tian, who had just arrived when he noticed Su Li's miserable state, and his face went grim as he pounced over. Whoosh. Just at this moment, a young man behind Su Tong instantly moved and kicked out with a speed like lightning, kicking Tianhu flying. Above the young man, 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes were faintly discernible. 9th level of the core formation stage. Bang. Tianhu fiercely fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood, his face ghastly pale. Tianhu. Xiao Yu's face went grim and his eyes were filled with rage. Su Tong, it's you? Xiao Sun's gaze descended onto the young man in embroidered clothes and his face sank. Xiao Sun, don't get involved in this matter. Fuck off. Su Tong's voice was cold and indifferent, and his gaze then descended onto the violet-clothed youth beside Xiao Sun. However, you can leave today. This Duan Lingtian must stay. When he saw Su Li's miserable state, Duan Lingtian's face was extremely unsightly. Su Li was his friend. Now, when he saw Tianhu being kicked flying by one of the young men, a wave of rage arose within his heart. Just when he was having difficulty suppressing the rage in his heart, he heard the young man in the lead suddenly say, "Want me to stay?" Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he stared at the young man in embroidered clothes, Su Tong. Could it be that this Su Tong's target wasn't Su Li but him? Instantly, a trace of coldness arose within his heart. Duan Lingtian, leave. Right at this moment, Su Li's cold voice sounded out, and he asked Duan Lingtian to leave. Obviously he'd guessed something. You dealt with Su Li like this just to make me come over? Duan Lingtian took a step forward and stared at Su Tong with a chilly gaze as he asked in a low voice. He didn't listen to Su Li. If he were to leave now, then he wouldn't be Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, needless to say, you're very smart. However, smart people usually don't live long. Su Tong glanced at Duan Lingtian with slight surprise. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile, and his voice was terrifyingly calm. Since you're able to guess my objective, then you ought to be able to guess why I've come to find you, right? What? Are the Su clan members such sore losers? Duan Lingtian sneered. He'd indeed guessed it. If one were to say what sort of relationship he had with the Su clan, then it would be nothing more than what happened at the third prince's estate's banquet last night. The Su Lan that died at his hands was a member of the Su clan. Sore losers? Su Tong's face sank. Last night at the third prince's estate's banquet, you used despicable methods to launch a sneak attack on Su Lan and killed him. Do you have the qualifications to say that my Su clan members can't afford to lose? Despicable methods? Sneak attack? Duan Lingtian's eyes went cold. Third prince, you're really vicious. Duan Lingtian guessed that all of this was surely caused by the third prince. The nearby Xiao Sun's heart jerked. Su Lan? Duan Lingtian killed Su Lan? The Su clan's branch family disciple with the highest natural talent in the younger generation, Su Lan? Su Tong's cousin? Then what do you want? Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, his burning gaze stared at Su Tong, and his voice was incomparably calm. You're so young yet you're already so vicious. In my opinion, with your cultivation, you shouldn't be left in this world. Su Tong's eyes constricted as he sneered. So to speak, you plan to cripple my cultivation? Duan Lingtian started laughing from extreme anger. His face was brilliant, and his eyes revolved with a breathtaking sheen. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's faces went pale. Su Tong. Xiao Sun coldly said, don't forget, Duan Lingtian is the son of Duan Ruffing, a direct descendant of the Duan clan. If you dare cripple his cultivation, how will you explain it to the Duan clan? Duan clan? Su Tong laughed and looked at Xiao Sun as if he was looking at an idiot. Xiao Sun, don't tell me you don't know about the matter of Duan Lingtian refusing to return to the Duan clan. Presently, Duan Lingtian isn't a member of the Duan clan. So you don't have to use this to scare me. Su Tong was originally an outstanding direct descendant of the Su clan, and in the future he even had the opportunity to strive for the position of patriarch. His position in the Su clan was extremely important. As far as he was concerned, as long as Duan Lingtian didn't return to the Duan clan, then not to mention crippling Duan Lingtian's cultivation, even killing Duan Lingtian wouldn't be a big deal. Xiao Sun's face sank and he was unable to refute. Although he was a direct descendant of the Xiao clan, his identity might cause an ordinary person to be afraid. But this Su Tong wouldn't be afraid. Su Tong, the grandson of the Su clan's grand elder, was only 25 years old, and his cultivation was at the third level of the origin core stage. He was the person with the highest natural talent in the martial Dao in the Su clan's younger generation, and was also one of the candidates for the next patriarch of the Su clan. It could be said that this Su Tong grew up with a golden spoon in his mouth, and was doted upon by a myriad of people. Xiao Sun, if you're sensible, then quickly F***K off. Or else, even if you're a direct descendant of the Xiao clan, I'll still make you see blood today. Su Tong's gaze went cold, and his words were unbridled and incomparably overbearing. Duan Lingtian is my friend. Xiao Sun's face sank and he met Su Tong's gaze without the slightest fear. Good, very good. Truly a touching friendship. Su Tong laughed, laughing without restraint, laughing arrogantly and unrestrainedly. In the next moment, whoosh, Su Tong's figure moved, and his speed rose to the limit, flashing before Xiao Sun in the blink of an eye. Bang! Instantly, Xiao Sun's body was blasted flying by Su Tong, and he fiercely crashed onto the ground. Above Su Tong, the strength of 40 ancient mammoths flashed. Third level of the origin core stage. Chapter 169. Su Tong. Duan Lingtian's face was gloomy as he spoke in a low voice. His voice contained a breathtaking iciness mixed within, as if it came from the depths of hell. Su Li, Tianhu and Xiao Sun were injured one after the other. The flames of rage within his heart had accumulated to the point of being on the verge of exploding. Su Tong withdrew his cold gaze from Xiao Sun and moved it onto Duan Lingtian, and a trace of mischievousness jumped about within his eyes. What? You're angry and can't take it anymore? As he spoke up to hear, Su Tong's tone changed and carried coldness. Then when you used despicable methods to sneak attack my cousin brother, Su Lan, and killed him, did you think about his parents' feelings? Today I won't kill you and will only cripple your cultivation. If you appear before me again in the future, I'll surely kill you. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth slightly trembled and an extreme sneer appeared on his face. Want to cripple my cultivation? Then let's see if you have the ability. Presently, Duan Lingtian's reason was almost completely suppressed by his rage, and he took a step forward with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. As for the matter with Su Lan, he couldn't be bothered to explain. Capture him. Su Tong's voice suddenly sounded out as he ordered. Whoosh, whoosh. Instantly, the two young men behind Su Tong flashed out and charged towards Duan Lingtian. These two people were 9th-level core formation martial artists. They pounced towards Duan Lingtian in an overbearing manner, one on the left and one on the right. They extended their hands, wanting to grab onto Duan Lingtian's shoulders and cause him to be unable to move. You're courting death. Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold when faced with the two people that flashed over. His hand descended onto the violet myrtle flexible sword on his waist, and he took a step forward to greet the two people. Suddenly, sword drawing arts. Duan Lingtian attacked. 15 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Duan Lingtian. The dazzling violet sword lights seemed to have grown eyes as they followed him like shadows, flashing through the sky with peerless sharpness. At the same time, accompanied by two resplendent red roses that condensed into form in the air, two shrill cries sounded out. Boom, boom. Two severed arms from two different people fell to the ground with a loud crash. The young man who had been aggressive just a moment ago was now deathly pale. After staunching the wound on his broken arm, he retreated to the side and stared at Duan Lingtian in horror. They didn't expect that the Duan Lingtian would still dare to resist. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat as they looked at the two severed arms at Duan Lingtian's feet. Their eyes were filled with grief. If Duan Lingtian knew what the two of them were thinking, he would definitely laugh disdainfully. Not resisting? Waiting for death? You. Su Tong never imagined that Duan Lingtian would actually dare to make a move and chop off the arms of two Su clan disciples. For a moment, his eyes stared wide open, his body trembled, and he was enraged to the extreme. On his body, elemental energy was wreaking havoc. 40 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above his head. Duan Lingtian, I thought you were a smart person. I didn't expect that you would actually be so stupid. You actually still dare to resist at a time like this. Su Tong's cold voice seemed to have come from the mouth of an Azura, and it contained killing intent that soared into the sky. You want to cripple my cultivation, yet you won't allow me to resist? Duan Lingtian sneered. This Su Tong is truly laughable. You want to cripple my cultivation, yet you won't allow me to resist? Could it be that you want me to stand on the spot and wait for death? Does the outcome make a difference whether you resist or not? Su Tong continued as he walked step by step towards Duan Lingtian. His voice was incomparably low. However, you dared to resist and you've completely infuriated me. I've changed my mind now. I can't kill you in Paladin Academy, so I'll cripple your cultivation first. The moment you leave Paladin Academy will be the moment you lose your life. Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid in the slightest when he saw Su Tong approaching, and his eyes flickered with a strange light. Then let's see if you have the ability. What? You think you can go against the will of a 3rd-level origin core stage martial artist like me by relying on your cultivation at the 9th level of the core formation stage and the grade 7 spirit weapon in your hand? Su Tong's voice was filled with disdain. Even if you use a grade 7 spirit weapon, you'll at most be able to exert the strength of 15 ancient mammoths. Whereas I, a 3rd-level origin core stage martial artist, am capable of exerting the strength of 40 ancient mammoths even without using a spirit weapon. Your little bit of strength is like an ant in my eyes. Su Tong spoke out word by word as if he wanted to completely destroy Duan Lingtian's last bit of confidence. Ha! Looks like you're extremely confident of your own strength. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a beautiful arc, his sword-like eyebrows raised, and his eyes flickered with a strange light. You can still be stubborn even at a time like this. Needless to say, your courage is shocking. Meanwhile, Su Tong had already arrived near Duan Lingtian, and his face was covered in a layer of frost. But sometimes, there are some things that relying on courage alone is useless. You'll soon know how laughable your little bit of courage is before formidable strength. I'll wait and see. Flowing lights flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes as he calmly looked at Su Tong. Pig-headed. When Su Tong saw that Duan Lingtian was still so calm, a ball of evil fire instantly arose within his heart, and killing intent suffused his eyes. Whoosh! He took a step forward, and a piercingly cold strong wind blew, causing the dust on the ground to suffuse into the air. Duan Lingtian, I really want to see if you can still be so carefree after your Dantian is crippled and you become a cripple. Su Tong's voice became even colder, and his fierce gaze seemed to be able to penetrate Duan Lingtian. I'm extremely curious as well. When you become a cripple and recall this scene, will you feel that all of this is so laughable? A strand of cold light flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes as he retorted, unwilling to be outdone. You're courting death. Su Tong's rage couldn't be suppressed any longer, and his figure flashed out, transforming into a gust of wind that blew towards Duan Lingtian. Above the sky, 40 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out along with him. Duan Lingtian. Xiao Yu had just given Su Li Tianhu and Xiao Sun the gold injury pills when he saw this scene, and his face went ghastly pale as his eyes almost split apart from rage. At this moment he only hated that his strength was too weak, and he was unable to help Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian stood on the spot as he coldly stared at Su Tong, who flashed over, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. You want to cripple my Dantian? Then I'll let you have a good taste of having your Dantian crippled. Bang. At this moment, Su Tong had already arrived near Duan Lingtian and struck out with his fist. Origin energy raged before condensing together and blasting towards Duan Lingtian's Dantian. Obviously, he wanted to directly shatter Duan Lingtian's Dantian. Su Tong's face revealed a sneer, as if he'd already seen the scene of Duan Lingtian's Dantian being shattered by him. Whoosh! At almost the exact same moment, Duan Lingtian moved. The violet myrtle flexible sword flashed out and lightly trembled. A wisp of disdain appeared on the corners of Su Tong's mouth when he saw this scene. Even if a mere 9th-level core formation martial artist had a grade 7 spirit weapon, he still didn't take Duan Lingtian seriously. However, in next to no time, the disdain on the corners of his mouth completely froze. His eyes stared wide open as if he'd seen something terrifying. A bloody light flashed out from the violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Lingtian's hand and condensed into a blood moon. The blood moon was like a bolt of lightning as it greeted Su Tong's fist that was condensed from origin energy. It was precisely Duan Lingtian activating the blood crescent inscription on the violet myrtle flexible sword. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's eyes were filled with coldness. No. Accompanied by a shrill and miserable cry, Su Tong's fist was penetrated by the blood moon, bringing along a wisp of dazzling fresh blood that condensed into a red rose in the air. The blood moon's momentum didn't decrease as it headed straight for Su Tong's Dantian. Puchi. It easily entered and minced Su Tong's Dantian into pieces. Su Tong's body shook and he abruptly shouted out explosively. The feeling of the origin energy within his Dantian being dispersed caused him to temporarily forget the pain that came from his fist. Thump. Su Tong's legs went weak and he directly knelt before Duan Lingtian. No. Su Tong's eyes stared wide open and he was absent-minded as he ceaselessly shook his head. He was slightly dazed and wasn't willing to believe that all this was real. You actually crippled my Dantian. Su Tong looked at Duan Lingtian, and his eyes flickered with the sheen of hatred. No matter what, he never would have imagined that this Duan Lingtian actually possessed such a terrifying offensive inscription. Not only did it break through his attack, it even penetrated his Dantian, causing all the origin energy in his body to be completely dispersed, and he became a complete and utter cripple. Looking at this scene, Duan Lingtian had a calm expression, and a trace of flowing light appeared in his eyes. Didn't you say you wanted to cripple my Dantian? Now how do you feel? How does it feel to become a cripple? Today, if it wasn't for him possessing the blood crescent inscription, Su Tong's current outcome would be his outcome. This Su Tong was so ruthless and merciless, wanting to cripple his Dantian at every turn. He'd give Su Tong a taste of his own medicine. Su Tong's face flushed red, and he was angered by Duan Lingtian to the point he spat out a mouthful of blood. In his mind, the words Duan Lingtian had said to him earlier echoed in his mind. I'm extremely curious as well. When you become a cripple and recall this scene, would you feel that all of this is so laughable? So it turned out that this Duan Lingtian had planned everything out. Just waiting for him to charge forward, then use the offensive inscription to destroy his Dantian. Right now that he thought about it, it was indeed laughable. The Su clan won't let you off. Under the agitation of his emotions, Su Tong's body trembled, and he fainted due to excessive blood loss. Brother Tong. The faces of the Su clan disciples that each had an arm severed by Duan Lingtian went pale. Traces of a sheen of terror appeared within their eyes. They never imagined that this Duan Lingtian was actually so terrifying. Not only was his natural talent in the martial Dao heaven-defying, he even possessed an offensive inscription that could deal with origin core martial artists. Even within the boundaries of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, an inscription like this was extremely precious. In the distance, Su Li, Tianhu and Xiao Sun's injuries had recovered slightly, and with the support of Xiao Yu, they were barely able to stand up. However, as they looked at the scene that occurred in the distance, they were completely dumbstruck. When Duan Lingtian faced the third-level origin core stage martial artist, Su Tong, they practically despaired, as they felt that Duan Lingtian's cultivation would surely be crippled by Su Tong. Chapter 170. None of them expected this. That Su Tong wanted to cripple Duan Lingtian, but was instead crippled by Duan Lingtian. How ironic was this? However, now that they saw Duan Lingtian was safe and sound, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian frowned as he looked outside the bamboo forest. Presently, 3 incomparably swift figures were flying over from afar, and in the blink of an eye, they were near him. These were 3 middle-aged men, and he only recognized one of them. Niu Meng, a first-year teacher of the Faculty of General. He was also the teacher of Su Li and Tianhu's class. As for the other 2 middle-aged men, one of them was a robust man with a stocky build, and the other was a middle-aged scholar with a graceful bearing. Just from their appearances, Duan Lingtian was able to guess which faculty they were from. Su Tong. The robust man recognized Su Tong, who had fallen on the ground, and his expression slightly changed. Without the slightest hesitation, he stepped forward and helped Su Tong stop the blood that was ceaselessly flowing from his body. At the same time, he gave Su Tong a gold injury pill. What's going on? The robust man's thick eyebrows frowned, and his pair of tiger-like eyes that emitted a dignified aura focused on Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid in the slightest. He glanced at the robust man and shrugged. Actually, it's nothing much. He wanted to cripple my cultivation, but in the end, he didn't succeed and ended up like this. Hearing this, the robust man inspected for a while, and only then did he realize that Su Tong's Dantian had actually been crippled. Instantly, his pupils couldn't help but constrict as he looked at the violet-clothed youth before him with a face full of astonishment. The casualness on the youth's face caused him to be shocked. Kid, do you know that you've gotten into trouble? Teacher, according to what I know, Paladin Academy only explicitly states that students are not allowed to kill each other. Someone wanted to cripple my Dantian, so I couldn't just resign myself to death and do nothing, right? Duan Lingtian spread out his hands and smiled indifferently with a carefree expression. He didn't feel that he was in the wrong for what happened today. If it wasn't for Su Tong being overbearing and even viciously wanting to cripple his cultivation, he wouldn't have been so ruthless. In his opinion, Su Tong only had himself to blame. When the brawny man saw Duan Lingtian's innocent and harmless expression, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Are you Duan Lingtian? At this moment, the gaze of the middle-aged scholar who came with the brawny man fell on Duan Lingtian. Teacher. Duan Lingtian greeted the middle-aged scholar. The burly man's gaze was slightly surprised. So you're Duan Lingtian? If what you said is true, then the academy won't blame you. However, the Su clan's side was not so easy to discuss. This Su Tong has an extremely high position in the Su clan. You must be mentally prepared. Thank you for your reminder, teacher. Duan Lingtian lightly nodded and expressed his thanks. The brawny man glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian, then looked at the 2 one-armed young men. Both of you seem to be members of the Su clan as well, right? Yes, both of you take Su Tong back. Also, take your severed arms as well. They should be barely able to be reattached. Yes, teacher. The 2 one-armed young men had bitter expressions as they grabbed their severed arms and carried Su Tong before leaving dejectedly. Meanwhile, Niu Meng, who'd found out about the sequence of events from Su Li and Tianhu, walked over as well. I've already found out about the sequence of events from my two students. The source of the matter was that Su Tong. Duan Lingtian was only defending himself, and it has nothing to do with Duan Lingtian. The brawny man and the middle-aged scholar both nodded when they heard this. Even so, this matter still needs to be reported to the vice dean. Indeed. The brawny man and the middle-aged scholar glanced at Duan Lingtian before turning around and leaving. The two of them came quickly and left quickly as well. It could be said that they came and went like the wind. Teacher, I'm slightly scared when you look at me like that. Duan Lingtian noticed that Niu Meng was staring at him without blinking, causing him to feel a wave of disgust. This Niu Meng wouldn't have that kind of hobby, right? Niu Meng seemed to have realized that something was wrong. He laughed slyly and rubbed his palms together. Duan Lingtian, your natural talent in the martial Dao isn't bad. You've already cultivated to the 9th level of the core formation stage at such a young age. If you become a general in the future, you'll surely be able to slaughter in all directions and raise the morale of your allies. Teacher, if you have something to say, just say it. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, as he understood the meaning behind Niu Meng's words. Look, your straightforward character is the character of a general. Then I'll be frank. I want you to come to our Star General department. How about it? Niu Meng's eyes shone as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of anticipation. As far as he was concerned, with Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Dao, he would surely be an expert when he matured in the future. If such a figure could appear under his command, then his many years as a teacher in Paladin Academy wouldn't have been in vain. Duan Lingtian was slightly troubled, then he raised his head and seemed to have noticed something. His gaze was shocked, and the corners of his mouth held a trace of a smile. Teacher Niu Meng, I think you should speak to Teacher Sima about this. Niu Meng noticed that the atmosphere was off as well. Niu Meng, are you trying to poach my student? The middle-aged scholar who wore a silk headscarf and held a feather fan stood behind Niu Meng and slowly spoke as his wise eyes descended onto Niu Meng. Sima. Niu Meng turned around and laughed embarrassedly when he saw Sima Changfeng. Just joking. Just joking. Duan Lingtian, follow me. Sima Changfeng grunted in a low voice and ignored Niu Meng. He called out to Duan Lingtian and walked towards the depths of the bamboo forest. You guys go eat first, I'll be right behind you. Duan Lingtian greeted Xiao Yu's group of 4 before following Sima Changfeng's footsteps. You two kids have really lost all the face of my Star General Department's first grade class 1 today. For the sake of punishing you two, you'll be responsible for the teacher's lunch today. No objections, right? Niu Meng's righteous voice sounded out from behind, causing the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth to twitch. Subsequently, Tianhu's voice sounded out. No objections, no objections. In the depths of the bamboo forest, Sima Changfeng stopped. Duan Lingtian stopped as well. You were too impulsive in this matter. Sima Changfeng sighed. Obviously he already knew the ins and outs of the matter. Teacher, what do you mean by impulsive? Duan Lingtian didn't comment and asked instead. Don't take it lightly. Since Su Tong didn't die today, you were in the right and Paladin Academy won't pursue the matter. But do you know that Su Tong is a direct descendant of the Su clan that is heavily nurtured, and is one of the candidates for the next patriarch of the Su clan? You crippled Su Tong, which is equivalent to slapping the Su clan in the face. The Su clan will absolutely not let this matter go. Sima Changfeng shook his head. In his eyes, this student was like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of a tiger, daring to do anything. Teacher, I understand what you mean. But, in life there are some things to do and some things not to do. To me that Su Tong repeatedly said that he would cripple my cultivation, and even put it into action, which has already touched my bottom line. Not killing him is already being merciful. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused, and his expression was incomparably calm. As for that Su clan, if they really want to pursue the matter, then I'll accompany them. In life there are some things to do and some things not to do. Sima Changfeng carefully savored these few short words, and could feel the unruliness within Duan Lingtian's words. At this instant he also felt Duan Lingtian's self-confidence, and looked deeply at Duan Lingtian. I didn't expect that you would see this matter so thoroughly. I originally thought that you were only impulsive. Since it's like this, I won't say anything more. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Sima Changfeng left the bamboo forest together, and the journey was peaceful. The Su clan. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. After returning to the cafeteria, Duan Lingtian directly sat beside Xiao Yu and the others and ate together. During this time, Xiao Yu and the others naturally couldn't help but worry about Duan Lingtian. After all, to them, the Su clan was a colossus that was difficult to contend with. Towards this, Duan Lingtian only smiled with a calm expression, as if he was an outsider, and all of this had nothing to do with him. The Su clan was one of the three great clans of the imperial city, and was equally famous as the Duan clan and the Xiao clan. Presently, within the audience hall of the Su clan estate, all the Su clan higher-ups were gathered together. A middle-aged man in a black robe with golden edges sat at the head seat, his back straight like a javelin, and between his brows, he emitted a dignified aura. It was precisely the Su clan's current patriarch, Su Boya. Su Boya was almost 60 years old now, and in a few more years he could be considered to have stepped into the twilight years of his life. At that time, the position of patriarch of the Su clan would be passed down to the younger generation, whereas he would live in seclusion behind the scenes and assist the new patriarch. Presently, the atmosphere within the audience hall seemed to be slightly oppressive. A position below Su Boya was empty at this moment. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps could be heard from outside the palace. An elderly figure walked in. This was an aged old man with a pair of muddy eyes that flickered with bloodthirsty rage, and the aura on his body was restless, as if it would explode out at any moment. In next to no time, the old man sat on the empty seat below Su Boya. This seat was the seat of the Su clan's Grand Elder. The old man's identity was obvious. The Su clan's Grand Elder, Su Nan. Grand Elder, is there any hope of healing Su Tong's Dantian? Patriarch Su Boya spoke, and his gaze descended onto Su Nan, and his tone contained slight anticipation mixed within. The Su clan elders present all looked at Su Nan as well, and their eyes all emitted traces of hope. Patriarch, my grandson's Dantian was almost minced into pieces by the offensive inscription, and he's powerless to reverse the situation. I'm afraid it's impossible for him to accumulate origin energy again in his lifetime. Su Nan's tone contained breathtaking coldness mixed within. His son had died young, and these past few years he had placed all his hopes on his grandson, Su Tong, and taught and fostered him with great care. Su Tong didn't disappoint him, and became the disciple with the most outstanding natural talent in the martial Dao in the younger generation of the Su clan. In another few years, if nothing unexpected happened, the position of the next patriarch would surely be held by Su Tong. Just when he thought that his grandson's life would usher in its greatest glory. Chapter 171. Slap. The face of the Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, sank as his palm smashed down with a bang. The armrest of the chair was forcefully shattered by his palm. In terms of natural talent in the martial Dao, Su Tong was even better than him from all those years ago. As far as he was concerned, under Su Tong's lead, the Su clan would surely be able to walk towards new glory in the future. But now, all of this was ruined by a little brat. Patriarch, that Duan Lingtian acted so viciously. This matter can't be dropped just like this. Exactly, if he isn't punished, then where will our Su clan's face go? He must be severely punished. All of the Su clan elders were filled with righteous indignation and were extremely furious. Grand Elder, I'll leave this matter to you. The Su clan will fully cooperate with you. Su Boya's gaze descended onto Su Nan. He knew clearly in his heart that amongst the people present, the most furious was still Su Nan. After all, Su Tong was his grandson. Thank you, Patriarch. Hearing Su Boya's words, Su Nan was slightly agitated, and his eyes emitted a vicious sheen, as if he was about to swallow someone up. As far as he was concerned, no matter who it was, at the moment his grandson's Dantian was crippled, it was equivalent to taking half a step into the gates of hell. He wouldn't bother about the reason behind it, no matter if it was his grandson that caused trouble first. He only knew that what he had to do was burn the bones and scatter the ashes of the person that crippled his grandson. Paladin Academy. On a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, raging python form. Duan Lingtian cultivated for an entire afternoon, and when it was close to dusk, he noticed that his cultivation bottleneck had loosened. If nothing unexpected happens, I should be able to break through within this month. Duan Lingtian's eyes flickered and the corners of his mouth curled into a trace of a smile. The current him could finally be like a normal core formation martial artist and increase his cultivation as much as he liked. As for the body tempering of the raging python form, he could leave it to the dragon blood pill to complete. A single dragon blood pill was sufficient to allow his body to instantly complete the tempering of origin energy. Duan Lingtian, who was in a good mood, jumped down from the large tree and watched Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun spar with the other students for a while before leaving Paladin Academy. Duan Ling Tian, be careful. Xiao Yu and Xiao Yu both had solemn expressions as they reminded Duan Ling Tian. After all, Duan Ling Tian was now facing the entire Su clan, a colossus that couldn't be underestimated. Don't worry. Duan Ling Tian nodded, a trace of warmth rising in his heart. After parting ways with Xiao Yu at the entrance of Paladin Academy, Duan Ling Tian suddenly stopped in his tracks. At this moment, he could feel the restlessness of the two little pythons hidden under his sleeves, and it caused his face to sink as he became vigilant. The Su clan's people moved so quickly? After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian's figure flashed out as if transforming into a bolt of lightning, and he intentionally concealed himself within the remote alley where he lured and killed the two 9th-level Origin Core stage martial artists of the Duan clan that day. Duan Lingtian took 2 steps forward. Whoosh, whoosh. Accompanied by 2 awe-inspiring sounds of the wind, 2 aged figures flanked Duan Lingtian from the front and back, causing him to have no place to escape. These were 2 old men over the age of 70, but their eyes were even more spirited than a young man's, flickering with a breathtaking bright light. Obviously their cultivations weren't low. At the first moment, Duan Lingtian relied on the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu and his own formidable spiritual force to roughly estimate their cultivations. These 2 old men's cultivations should be between the 4th level of the core formation stage and the 6th level of the core formation stage. In terms of strength, it was far from being comparable to the 3rd Prince Estate's manager, Husan, that he killed last night. The Su clan looks down on me like this? They think the 2 of you are enough to kill me? Duan Lingtian's brows raised as a trace of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Su clan. The 2 old men were obviously stunned when they heard Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, looks like you've made quite a number of enemies. However, we aren't members of the Su clan. The old man that stood in front of Duan Lingtian calmly looked at Duan Lingtian as he slowly spoke. Not members of the Su clan? Duan Lingtian was stunned and thought in his heart. Could it be that they were sent by the 5th prince? Or perhaps they were sent by the Duan clan's 2nd master, Duan Rulei? Duan Lingtian, you killed 2 of my Yu clan's elders and 2 outstanding disciples. Today is the day you die. The old man that stood behind Duan Lingtian had a voice that was cold and indifferent like ice, as if it came from an ice cave. Yu clan? Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as he came to a sudden understanding. I didn't expect that in order to kill me, the 2 of you would personally rush over from such a faraway place like the Swallow Mountain County's county city. I'm truly overwhelmed by your favor. However, aren't the 2 of you afraid that I'll make you stay in the Imperial City forever? Duan Lingtian guessed the identities of the 2 old men, and as he finished speaking, the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Members of the Swallow Mountain County's county city's Yu clan. They were also members of the clans of Yu Hong and Yu Xiang, who had a grudge with him in Ironblood City's Ironblood army. Shameless boasting. The old man that stood in front of Duan Lingtian snorted coldly and didn't speak any more nonsense before abruptly attacking. Above him, 600 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 4th level of the nascent soul stage. The strength of this old man was much stronger than the Yu clan's grand elder that intercepted and killed Duan Lingtian on the way. The old man behind Duan Lingtian moved along with him. Another 4th level nascent soul stage martial artist. Little black, little white, I'll leave them to you. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. In the next moment he abruptly raised his hand. Whoosh, whoosh. Under his sleeve, a white bolt of lightning and a black bolt of lightning split into 2 and flashed out at the same time. Their speed was swift to the limit, and piercing whistling sounds were deafening. In the sky, besides the 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes that were summoned by the 2 Yu clan old men, another 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared out of thin air. Mammoth flurry. The 2 old men that flashed towards Duan Lingtian with imposing auras that shot into the sky like rainbows never imagined that Duan Lingtian actually had such a trump card in his possession. A trace of terror appeared in their eyes when they saw the 2 fierce beasts that had strengths not inferior to them flying over. Right at the instant their minds shook. Puchi. Puchi. A bloody hole instantly appeared on their chests, and their eyes that were originally brimming with spirit dimmed down at this moment. Bang. Bang. The 2 corpses crashed onto the ground, and they died with everlasting regret. If they knew beforehand that Duan Lingtian had 2 fierce beast little pythons protecting him, even if they weren't a match for him, they wouldn't have been killed so quickly. The sneak attack of the 2 little pythons caused them, who were similarly at the 4th level of the nascent soul stage, to be unable to guard against it. When they reacted to it, it was already too late. Little black, little white, well done. When we get home, I'll get the kitchen to specially cook 2 plates of meat for the 2 of you. Duan Tian praised the 2 little pythons. When the 2 little pythons heard that there was meat to eat, their lively little eyes flickered with a sheen of excitement. The Yu clan is really haunting me. After putting away the 2 little pythons into his sleeve, Duan Tian sneered. As far as he was concerned, these 2 old fellows of the Yu clan had simply come from afar to give up their lives. After putting away the 2 old men's spatial rings, he condensed his pill fire and incinerated the 2 corpses before leaving as if nothing had happened. Perhaps it was because the spatial ring in Husan's hand yesterday gave Duan Tian too great of a pleasant surprise. The few million taels of silver within the 2 Yu clan old men's spatial rings didn't cause Duan Tian's mood to fluctuate in the slightest. However, since he had money for no reason, it would be a waste not to take it. Night slowly descended. After eating dinner, Duan Tian fulfilled his promise and asked the kitchen to cook 2 plates of rat meat for the 2 little pythons. Of course, it wasn't ordinary rat meat, but rather a 3rd-level core formation fierce beast, the burrowing earth rat. Little white, even if it's delicious, don't eat so much. Look at you, you're full, aren't you? A voice that was like a silver bell mixed with a sense of reproach. It was Kerr who was lightly stroking the little white python's bulging belly. The 2 little pythons lay on the table with their bellies sticking out, unable to move for a long time. Duan Tian and Li Fei, who sat at the side, couldn't help but laugh when they saw this scene. Suddenly, Duan Tian, Kerr, and Li Fei's gazes descended upon the 2 little pythons. They saw that the markings on the surface of the little pythons' bodies were currently flickering with a fine light. The golden markings on the little black python's body and the silver markings on the little white python's body gradually flickered, becoming more and more resplendent. In the end, the little black python was completely enveloped by the golden light, and as for the little white python, it was enveloped by the silver light. Whoosh! Suddenly, Duan Tian noticed that strands of faint brilliance descended from the horizon. This is moonlight force? Li Fei exclaimed in surprise. This is moonlight force? Duan Tian was slightly surprised. He still remembered that the sun-moon star technique he passed down to Li Fei absorbed glorious sun force and moonlight force to cultivate, then converge them within the body and condense them into origin energy. However, he never imagined that the 2 little pythons were actually able to draw upon moonlight force. According to the Rebirth Martial Emperor's memory, the power of the moonlight could only be activated by special techniques. The art of heavenly sun and heavenly star that Li Fei practiced was one of them. The moonlight force poured down, as if it was draped over the night sky with a gentle veil. Duan Tian noticed that when the moonlight force poured down, it actually resonated with the silver light on the little white python's body, and the 2 of them connected together. Subsequently, the golden light on the little black python's body wasn't willing to fall behind, and it merged with the silver light on the little black python's body. The 3 of them completely merged together. Half an hour passed and the moonlight force retreated. The golden light on the little black python's body and the silver light on the little white python's body gradually withdrew. With Duan Tian's formidable spiritual force, he noticed the changes on the 2 little pythons at the first possible moment. They seemed to have broken through. 5th level of the core formation stage. Hiss hiss, hiss hiss. Before long, the 2 little pythons flipped over and stood up, flicking their tongues. Their gazes descended onto the remaining stir-fried meat, then they lowered their heads and started eating. Their bellies from eating until they were full earlier had sunk in, and the food they ate before had already been completely digested. Duan Tian and the 2 girls beside him looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. What kind of snakes are you 2 little fellows? So strange. Duan Tian laughed bitterly. He faintly felt that the origins of these 2 little pythons weren't simple. Chapter 172. Duan Tian raised his head to look at the night sky. The specks of stars reflected in his eyes. These stars should also be planets, right? According to the memories of Reincarnation Emperor Wu, Cloud Continent is vast and boundless. But in the 4 polar regions there is a boundless sea. The sea is so vast that it is boundless. Reincarnation Emperor Wu once went out to sea with the intention of exploring, but in the end he discovered that the boundless sea seemed to have no end. In the end he was also worried that he would get lost, so he didn't go deeper. A memory of reincarnation Emperor Wu flashed past Duan Lingtian's mind. In other words, reincarnation Emperor Wu didn't go deep to explore this vast world. Perhaps the cloud continent I'm on now is connected to the boundless sea, and is also a planet. Duan Lingtian guessed in his heart. At this moment he made a great wish in his heart. In the future, if he could stand at the peak of Cloud Continent, he must bring his family and go out to sea to explore this vast world. He wanted to see if this place was also a planet. According to his estimation, if this was a planet, it would absolutely be a planet countless times larger than Earth. The speed of reincarnation Emperor Wu at his peak was countless times faster than the planes on Earth in his previous life. With reincarnation Emperor Wu's speed, if placed on Earth, he would be able to complete a full circle around Earth in the blink of an eye. If the land beneath my feet is really a planet, Duan Lingtian's gaze looked at the numerous stars in the sky and his heart moved. Which planet is Earth? Earth was his hometown. There were too many memories of him there. If he had the chance to go back, he would definitely go back, for no other reason than to burn the bones and scatter the ashes of the manager that framed him back then. Although, to a certain extent, he still had to thank the other party. She gave him an even more exciting life. But that was that, and some debts still had to be settled. Young master, what are you thinking? Ker's voice sounded like a silver bell, causing Duan Lingtian to come back to his senses. He smiled and said, I was wondering if there were humans like us on those stars. Young master, why would you think that? If there were people on those stars, they would have fallen down long ago. Ker also looked up at the stars in the night sky. Her long, shapely eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and she had an innocent look on her face. Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. What could he say? Could it be that he had to explain to Ku'er what gravitational force was? At this time, Li Fei also looked at the stars in the night sky. Her autumn eyes slightly narrowed as she pondered. Duan Lingtian and his two future daughters-in-law were admiring the moon and looking at the stars. However, outside the Su family mansion, two figures walked in one after another. The person in the front was a young man around the age of 22 or 23. The person behind him was a young man around the age of 20. He wore red clothes and had a cold expression. He always held the sheathed sword in his arms, and his cold eyes flickered with a trace of a strange light. After a short moment, Grand Elder Su Li has arrived. Before a spacious courtyard, the young man that led the way spoke respectfully. Let him in. An aged voice sounded out from within. The cold young man in red clothes that held a sword was precisely Su Li. A trace of a complicated sheen flashed past Su Li's eyes, but in the end he still walked into the courtyard. Within the spacious courtyard, an aged figure stood there, motionless like a mountain, and a pair of eyes that emitted bright lights descended onto Su Li. After Su Li entered, he stood there without saying a word. Has your father been well recently? The Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan, slowly asked as his gaze descended onto Su Li. He's all right, he eats his fill and sleeps soundly. Su Li spoke indifferently as if he wasn't willing to speak any further with Su Nan. Since you asked me to come, then speak frankly. Su Nan spoke unhurriedly. I still remember that your father was a sword cultivator all those years ago. He wielded the shadowless sword, and within our Su clan he rarely met a match. Unfortunately, he was too arrogant and actually went to challenge Duan Ruffing, who was at the peak of the Duan clan at that time. In the end, not only was his sword broken, he even suffered internal injuries that were difficult to heal, and it was difficult for him to utilize the origin energy in his body. I heard that you have a good relationship with Duan Rufing's son, Duan Lingtian, and are even friends. What? You don't hate the son of the enemy that caused your father to be so miserable? As he spoke up to hear, Su Nan's gaze became sharp as if it could see through everything. Why should I hate him? Su Li spoke indifferently with a calm tone. If you called me here for the sake of sowing discord, then don't waste your efforts. Although his father lost at the hands of Duan Ruffing all those years ago and suffered internal injuries, he'd never hated Duan Ruffing. Even to the extent. Every time his father mentioned Duan Ruffing, it was with heartfelt respect. That year, although he was at a faraway place, his father was still lost for a period of time after he found out that Duan Ruffing had gone missing. At that time, although he was young, he still remembered it clearly. He'd been influenced by his father since he was young, so he naturally wouldn't hate Duan Ruffing. Moreover, wasn't the reason his father left the Su clan and the Imperial City all those years ago because of the group of villains in the Su clan? If he were to speak of hate, then he hated the Su clan even more. You're really the same as your father, stubborn. Su Nan's face sank. If there's nothing else, then I'll be leaving first. Su Li's eyes squinted as a cold light flashed within, and his hand that held his sword tightened slightly. In his entire life, the person he admired the most was his father, and he wouldn't allow others to disrespect him. Since it's like this, then I'll be frank with you. Take this thing first. Su Nan raised his hand and tossed a small jade bottle to Su Li. Su Li frowned. He was able to discern that this was a medicinal pill bottle. However, he didn't think that Su Nan would be so kind as to give him medicinal pills. This is the origin freezing pill. Su Nan slowly spoke. Su Li's face went grim. He naturally knew what the origin freezing pill was. Although it couldn't be considered as a poison, if a martial artist below the origin core stage consumed it, then the origin energy of the martial artist would be suppressed by the medicinal strength, and the martial artist would be unable to circulate his origin energy for 10 hours. Even if only a trace of it was consumed, one's origin energy would be suppressed for at least half an hour. At this instant, Su Li understood Su Nan's intentions. You want me to give this origin freezing pill to Duan Lingtian? You're very smart. Su Nan's gaze flashed as he slowly said, I know you take him as a friend, so I won't force you. There's no need for you to kill him yourself. You only have to let him consume the origin freezing pill when he's eating, even if it's only a trace of it. At that time, our Su clan's disciples in Paladin Academy will personally make a move. Do you think it's possible? Su Li sneered, then raised his hand and intended to throw away the medicinal pill bottle in his hand. If you throw away this origin freezing pill, then there'll be no room for negotiation. Su Nan's face sank as he spoke coldly. What? Threatening me? Do you think I, Su Li, am the type of person that would harm the life of a friend for the sake of living? Su Li laughed in disdain. He would rather die than betray his friend, let alone harm his friend's life. Su Nan's eyes squinted as he slowly said, Exactly, you're exactly the same as your father all those years ago. However, you don't have a choice. Our Su clan has long since found out where you and your parents live in Flowing Wind City's Wuling Town. I'll give you 2 days. If you don't make that Duan Lingtian consume the origin freezing pill within 2 days, then I'll send someone to ride a Fergana horse to Wuling Town and take the lives of your parents. Su Li's face went ghastly pale. Although his father's cultivation wasn't weak, due to his body's internal injuries, he was unable to utilize his origin energy. His mother was only an ordinary woman, and her cultivation was even inferior to his. Despicable. Su Li never imagined that this Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan, would actually be so despicable as to use his parents' lives to threaten him. The lives of your parents are in your hands. You take care of yourself. Su Nan lightly smiled as if he was certain that he had Su Li in his grasp, then he waved his hand and asked Su Li to leave. Su Li took a deep breath as his gaze flickered, and he fell into a struggle. In the end, he still held the medicinal pill bottle that contained the origin freezing pill and left the Su clan estate. Early morning the next day. After eating breakfast, Duan Lingtian brought along the 2 little pythons and went to Paladin Academy as usual. What happened yesterday had obviously been intentionally suppressed by Paladin Academy and didn't spread out. The group of Star Mastermind Department students in the classroom didn't use any strange gazes to size up Duan Lingtian. The morning passed peacefully. At noon, Duan Lingtian and the others once again gathered in the cafeteria to eat. As Su Li, why's your expression so unsightly? Duan Lingtian noticed that Su Li's expression was slightly unnatural, and he couldn't help but ask. I wonder what's wrong with this fellow, to have such a stinky expression early in the morning. Tianhu shook his head. It's nothing. Under the caring gazes of Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Su Li shook his head. Before long the food was served and there was also a jug of wine. Thinking about what happened yesterday makes me happy. Let's have a proper toast. Tianhu smiled as he extended his hand to take the jug of wine. Slap. Su Li raised his hand and slapped Tianhu's hand away, taking the jug of wine first. The sun has risen from the west. You actually took the initiative to pour wine for us. Tianhu had an expression of disbelief. If it wasn't for you guys appearing in time yesterday, my cultivation would have been crippled by that Su Tong. Su Li muttered. What's there to be polite about? We're all friends. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. I say, Su Li, when did you become so wishy-washy? Come, hurry up and pour the wine. At a table not far away, 2 young men were sitting together. Looks like this Su Li is going to make his move today. Still calling himself a friend, but didn't he still betray him? That Duan Lingtian, even in death, probably wouldn't have thought that his good friend would drug him. The 2 young men whispered to each other in words only they could hear. However, we've gotten rid of this Duan Ling Tian, so we have to leave Paladin Academy. Chapter 173. They've already drunk the wine Su Li poured? The gazes of the two young men abruptly lit up. Bang! Just at this moment, they saw the wine cup in Su Li's hand slip to the ground and shatter. Su Li, how could you be so careless? Tianhu shook his head and smiled. Oh. Just at this moment, Duan Lingtian's face went grim. His formidable spiritual force vaguely perceived a trace of danger. Duan Lingtian, watch out. Xiao Yu, who sat opposite Duan Lingtian, seemed to have seen something, and his pupils constricted and his face went ghastly pale as he shouted out explosively. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 3-foot-long blades that flickered with a cold light came from the hands of 2 unfamiliar young men, and they whistled out as they flashed towards Duan Lingtian. The swift and fierce sword lights gave rise to piercing howls as they flashed towards Duan Lingtian's back. Above the 2 young men, 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 2 9th-level core formation martial artists. Presumptuous. Just at this moment, an aged voice that contained explosive rage sounded from the top of the canteen. A gust of wind could be faintly felt from the stairs that led downstairs. An aged figure swiftly descended from the sky. But unfortunately he was obviously too late. The swords in the hands of the 2 young men had already arrived before Duan Lingtian and were about to pierce through Duan Lingtian's back and pass through his body. Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun and Tian, whose faces went ghastly pale, but their cultivations were far inferior to the 2 young men that suddenly attacked Duan Lingtian, and they were utterly unable to help Duan Lingtian in time. When they stood up, the 2 young men's swords had already arrived behind Duan Lingtian. At this critical moment, Duan Lingtian moved. Origin energy exploded beneath his feet, and 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes abruptly condensed into form above him. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Lingtian's body moved at an extremely tricky angle and barely dodged the 2 swords that flashed swiftly towards him. Not only that, his feet trembled, and in an instant, his entire body seemed to have turned into a spirit snake, sticking close to the 2 young men who had suddenly attacked him and swept behind them. You're courting death. Duan Lingtian's eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and a purple sword light swept out. 15 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Duan Lingtian. Sword drawing technique. With just 1 sword strike, 2 streaks of bright blood spurted out. The 2 young men who had come with menacing momentum a moment ago were sent flying with their eyes wide open, crashing heavily into the wall. In their brief moment of death, their gazes did not look at Duan Lingtian. Instead, they looked at Su Li. You. After one of the young men stopped breathing, the other young man struggled to raise his hand and wanted to point at Su Li with an angry expression. Unfortunately, before he could even lift his hand, he had already breathed his last. Dead. The 2 young men only had one thought in their minds before they died. They'd been tricked. Tricked by Su Li. It was fine if this Su Li didn't poison them. But he'd smashed his cup and sent them a secret signal, making them think that Su Li had already succeeded, which was why they impatiently wanted to kill Duan Lingtian. As far as they were concerned, Duan Lingtian was poisoned and was unable to utilize his origin energy, so wouldn't it be easy for them to kill Duan Lingtian? But who would have thought that Duan Lingtian wasn't poisoned at all? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the 2 corpses on the ground, and his expression was extremely unsightly. These 2 people were obviously senior students of Paladin Academy. Who the hell sent them to kill him? As a student of Paladin Academy, if they dared kill someone in the academy, it was equivalent to giving up their future because Paladin Academy would expel them. Someone sent by the 3rd prince? Or the 5th prince? Or the Duan clan's 2nd master, Duan Rulei, or the Su clan? Vice Dean. At this moment, under the respectful greetings of the group of students, the gray-robed old man who had just flashed over from the pavilion had already walked over. The old man's expression was extremely unsightly. There was actually a student who dared to kill another student in Paladin Academy. Luckily, the person who was killed was fine, otherwise Paladin Academy would have lost a great deal of face. Vice Dean. Duan Lingtian greeted the old man as well, and his expression eased up slightly. The academy will give you an explanation for this matter. The old man had a serious expression as he slowly spoke. Duan Lingtian slowly nodded, and a light flashed within his eyes. What he wanted to know the most now was who sent these 2 people. Immediately after, the old man walked towards the 2 corpses, and after looking through their student tokens, his expression sank. They're 4th-year students. Does anyone recognize them? Following the old man's words, a group of people in the cafeteria surrounded them and pointed at them. Isn't this our classes Su Ping and Su Ji? It really is the two of them. They seem to be from the Su clan, right? But why did they want to kill Duan Lingtian? Two madmen. They actually dared to kill someone in the academy. Before long, someone recognized the two young men who were killed. Su clan? Duan Lingtian's eyes focused and a cold, killing intent arose within them. He never imagined that the Su clan members would actually be so insane as to dare kill him in Paladin Academy. However, he was also slightly curious. Why would the Su clan only send two 9th level core formation martial artists to kill him? This was practically no different from courting death. No matter what, boundless rage still arose within his heart. He would remember this debt. Su clan? The old man heard the discussion of the group of students, and his face sank. Good. What a Su clan. He had received the reports of the conflict between Duan Lingtian and the Su clan from the two academy teachers yesterday, so he didn't feel it was sudden. However, the Su clan members daring to kill someone in the academy had undoubtedly touched his bottom line. This time the vice dean is really angry. Then the Su clan is probably out of luck. The hearts of some of the surrounding students trembled as they faintly guessed. Duan Lingtian, are you alright? At this moment, Xiao Yu and the others arrived beside Duan Lingtian with faces full of concern. I'm fine. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Only two 9th level core formation martial artists. Wanting to kill me? Still lacking. Not to mention two 9th level core formation martial artists. Today, as long as it wasn't a martial artist at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above who ambushed him, they would die without a doubt. Earlier, if it wasn't for him suppressing the two little pythons hidden within his sleeve and not allowing them to attack, those two Su clan members wouldn't even have the chance to get close to him. The two little pythons were his trump cards, and if it wasn't necessary he wouldn't easily reveal them. Are there any Su clan members amongst you? The old man's gaze swept past the surrounding crowd. Instantly, the faces of a few people went grim, but they still braced themselves and stood out. The few of you take the corpses of your clansmen and follow me to the Su clan. The old man walked out in large strides and left the cafeteria. Traces of suppressed rage were mixed within his words. Duan Lingtian and the others sat down and continued eating. What happened earlier was only a farce to them. When they almost finished eating, Duan Lingtian noticed that Su Li seemed to want to say something but hesitated, and he couldn't help but smile. Su Li, if you have something to say, just say it. We're not outsiders. Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, and Tian, who noticed that something was off with Su Li. I want to borrow 1 million silver from you. Su Li finally opened his mouth and went silent after he finished speaking. 1 million silver? Once Su Li spoke, Tian, whose eyes stared wide open. Only Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Sun didn't have much of a reaction. They were only slightly surprised as to why Su Li suddenly wanted so much money. However, they didn't ask any further. I have 200,000 silver on me. Xiao Yu was the first to speak. I have 300,000 silver. Su Li, if you're not in a hurry, I'll go back tonight and gather the money. I'll give it to you tomorrow. Xiao Sun said. Slap. Duan Lingtian didn't say anything. He stretched his hand into his bosom and slapped a stack of silver bills in front of Su Li. Exactly 1 million silver. F***K. Duan Lingtian, you're so rich. Tian, who fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva and glanced at Duan Lingtian in astonishment. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun's gazes also descended onto Duan Lingtian. They could take out 1 million silver, but they wouldn't carry so much money on them. Duan Lingtian, where did you get so much money? Xiao Yu had a face full of astonishment. He was the grandson of the Aurora City Xiao clan's supreme elder, so casually taking out a few million silver wasn't surprising. But Duan Lingtian was only a branch family disciple of the Li clan, and a disciple with a different surname. When I left Aurora City, the patriarch gave me 2 million silver. Duan Lingtian casually said. Looks like the Li clan's patriarch Li Ao thinks highly of your future. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a large investment. Xiao Yu shook his head and smiled. However, he made the right bet. He believed that with Duan Lingtian's strength and natural talent, the Li clan's business deal was a sure win for them. Thank you. Su Li glanced gratefully at Duan Lingtian before putting away the silver bills. We're all friends, there's no need to be so courteous. Duan Lingtian said indifferently. Currently, he had a huge sum of tens of millions of silver, and a mere 1 million silver was nothing to him. He also didn't plan on letting Su Li return it. To him, friends were far more important than money. But he didn't notice that in the depths of Su Li's eyes, a strand of a strange flowing light flickered. Su Clan Estate. Within the spacious courtyard, a young man with a pale complexion sat at the side, and his eyes were suffused with crimson red. "Grandfather, do you really have a way to make that Duan Ling Tian die?" The young man took a deep breath, and his voice contained extreme hatred mixed within. This young man was precisely Su Tong, whose Dantian was crippled by Duan Ling Tian. The original number 1 genius of the Su clan's younger generation, in existence at the 3rd level of the origin core stage, had now become a cripple, and his strength was only at the 9th level of the body tempering stage. "Tong, don't worry. By tomorrow at the latest, that Duan Ling Tian will surely die." The Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan, who stood at the side, slowly said with a tone filled with confidence. "Grand elder, are you sure that Duan Ling Tian will surely die?" Right at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice faintly mixed with a trace of rage sounded from outside the courtyard. "Patriarch." Chapter 174. Grand Elder, shouldn't you give me a good explanation for some things? The Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, had a solemn expression mixed with a trace of anger, and his eyes stared fixedly at the old man before him. "Patriarch, what are you doing?" A bad premonition arose within Su Nan's heart. He understood the patriarch and knew that it was impossible for the patriarch to get so angry over a small matter. "Paladin Academy's Zhan Xiong just left our Su clan." Su Boya's expression was extremely unsightly as he said in a deep voice, "Grand Elder, I handed that matter to you because I believed you could handle it well, and also because Su Tong is your grandson. But what you did this time was indeed thoughtless. Not only were you unable to kill that Duan Ling Tian, you even brought trouble to our Su clan." Hearing Su Boya's words, Su Nan reacted and his expression changed. Could it be that the plan failed? "Patriarch, what's going on?" Su Nan's breathing became slightly hurried. Just a moment ago, Paladin Academy's Vice Dean Zhan sent over the corpses of Su Ping and Su Ji. Su Boya took a deep breath. "Su Ping? Su Ji?" Su Nan's expression changed. "Patriarch, Su Ping and Su Ji are dead?" Su Ping and Su Ji were precisely the chess pieces in his plan, the chess pieces that cooperated with Su Li to kill the Duan Ling Tian. "Exactly, not only are they dead, they were killed by that Duan Ling Tian." Su Boya said in a deep voice, "If they succeeded and killed the Duan Ling Tian, then it would be fine. At most, Paladin Academy would expel them, and it wouldn't affect our Su clan at all. But not only did they fail to kill the Duan Ling Tian, they were even killed by the Duan Ling Tian. Now, for the sake of giving an explanation to the Duan Ling Tian, that Paladin Academy's Vice Dean Zhan isn't willing to let the matter go. Do you know that because of this matter, Vice Dean Zhan reduced our Su clan's recommendation quota to Paladin Academy from 5 to 3? As Su Boya finished speaking, the anger on his face became even more intense. In the past, the 5 quotas weren't even enough for the Su clan's higher-ups. Now that it had been reduced to 3, one could imagine what sort of expression those higher-ups would have when they found out about all this. Hearing this, Su Nan's body trembled and his face went pale. He had really gone for wool and come home shorn. No, impossible. If Su Li hadn't drugged them, they wouldn't have acted against that Duan Ling Tian. Su Nan was unwilling to believe that all of this was real. Su Boya's face sank as he grunted coldly, then flicked his sleeve and left. "Grand Elder, feel free to speak if you're unable to deal with this matter, and I'll send someone else to deal with it." After Su Boya left, Su Nan thought for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. How did his plan, which he thought was perfect, end up like this? There was only a single possibility, and that was Su Li didn't play by the rules and even betrayed him, joining forces with the Duan Ling Tian to kill 2 Su clan disciples. At this moment, "Great Elder, here is a letter for you." Right at this moment, a humble voice sounded out from outside the courtyard. A Su clan disciple passed a letter to Su Nan. Su Nan received the letter and opened it to take a look. "Great Elder Su Nan, I'm truly sorry. I accidentally dropped my wine cup during lunch, causing your people to mistakenly think that it was the secret signal to kill Duan Ling Tian. Signed off, Su Li." There was only a short sentence on the letter, yet it angered Su Nan to the point his body trembled violently, and the vital blood in his body roiled. Pooh. In the end, Su Nan was forcefully angered to the point he spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Nan's eyes flickered with a trace of a bloodthirsty sheen, and his icy cold voice revealed a bone-piercing coldness. Su Li, I'll make your entire family die a horrible death. Nearby, Su Tong's expression was extremely unsightly. He realized that his enemy Duan Lingtian had escaped calamity. Paladin Academy. On a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged in cultivation, and his entire body was immersed in a tranquil state. Duan Lingtian. Suddenly an urgent voice jolted Duan Lingtian awake. Duan Lingtian opened his eyes and noticed that Tian Hu was hastily running over from afar. Duan Lingtian leaped down from the large tree and went up to greet him. Tian Hu, what happened? Duan Lingtian. Su Li left. Tian Hu laughed bitterly. Left? Duan Lingtian didn't react to Tian Hu's words for a moment. This is the letter Su Li left for you. It wasn't until Tian Hu handed him a letter that his expression turned serious. He opened the letter. Duan Lingdan, when you see this letter, I should have already ridden the Fergana horse I borrowed money from you and returned home. When I left the Su clan estate last night, I had already made up my mind. Even if I, Su Li, have to give up my great future, I won't harm my own friends. When I return this time I'll take my parents away. As for where to go, I haven't thought of it yet. Maybe I'll leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye, and help me say goodbye to Xiao Yu and the others. Maybe one day in the future we'll meet again. At that time I'll return the money I owe you. Signed by, Su Li. Crash. Duan Lingtian stretched out his hand and crumpled the letter into a ball. In the letter that Su Li had written to him, other than these words of farewell, he had also described in detail what had happened. Su Li left Paladin Academy this time and gave up his own future. The first reason was for the safety of his parents. The second reason was for this friend of his. At this moment, many of the doubts in Duan Lingtian's heart were solved. Why did those two Su clan members overestimate their abilities and make things difficult for him when Su Li accidentally dropped a cup at noon? It turned out that those two Su clan members thought that Su Li had given him an origin freezing pill. Su Li, Duan Lingtian's heart trembled. Although Su Li was usually taciturn at this moment, he was able to feel Su Li's friendship. For this friend of his, Su Li was willing to give up his great future. Su Li, I believe that we'll surely meet again. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. A trace of anticipation flashed within his eyes, and his heart was slightly heavy. Duan Lingtian didn't know that after parting today, the next time he saw Su Li again would be many years later. Duan Lingtian. Su Li left? At this moment Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun came over as well. You guys take a look. Duan Lingtian sighed and passed the letter in his hand to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu opened the letter and Xiao Sun and Tian Hu went over to read it as well. That Su clan Grand Elder is despicable. After Tian Hu finished reading the letter, his face was extremely gloomy, and he gnashed his teeth in anger. He and Su Li had gotten to know each other through fighting, and they'd even entered the Star General Department together. In his heart, he'd long since taken Su Li to be his good friend, but he'd never thought that Su Li would leave just like this. In the future, he didn't know if there would be a day when they would meet again. After Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun finished reading the letter, their eyes were suffused with rage, and mixed with a trace of admiration. For the sake of his friend, Su Li gave up his great future and left just like this. Such actions were worthy of respect. Duan Lingtian once again returned to the large tree. Leaning against the tree trunk, he looked up at the azure blue sky through the luxuriant branches and leaves. His eyes gradually narrowed. Su clan. Since you guys want to play, then I'll play with you. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a cold smile. To a certain extent, Su Li's departure caused Duan Lingtian's attitude to undergo a slight change. The current him seemed to have once again returned to the cold and unfeeling weapons specialist. Thus, outside Paladin Academy, a luxurious carriage stopped at the side of the road. The person driving the carriage was an old man with white eyebrows. He had an extraordinary bearing, and it was obvious with a single glance that he wasn't a simple figure. Duan Lingtian had just walked out of Paladin Academy's gate when he noticed the carriage as well, but he didn't pay it any attention. After bidding farewell to Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu, he directly walked forward. Just when he passed by the side of the carriage, whoosh, a figure that was swift like a bolt of lightning was like a ghost as it obstructed Duan Lingtian's path. Only now did Duan Lingtian notice that the person that appeared before him was precisely the old man with white eyebrows that drove the carriage. Duan Lingtian's face sank. At this moment, he could feel the unusual movements of the two little pythons hidden within his sleeve. Relying on the experience of Samsara Emperor Wu and his own spiritual force, he could deduce the old man's cultivation. This old man was an expert at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. In terms of strength, he wasn't even inferior to the 3rd prince's manager, Husan. However, this old man with white eyebrows obviously wasn't a half-step void stage expert like the Divine Might Marquis. Unless such a figure was able to launch a sneak attack when he wasn't on guard. Otherwise, by relying on the bone corrosion inscription, he had the confidence to instantly kill the old man. "You're Duan Lingtian?" The old man with white eyebrows asked in a low voice, and he used a condescending gaze to examine Duan Lingtian. K off. Duan Lingtian's gaze was icy cold and his face sank. He'd always disdained to pay attention to an old fellow like this that took advantage of his seniority. Moreover, he still had proper business to do and didn't have time to waste with this old fellow. The old man with white eyebrows was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect that Duan Lingtian would dare have such an attitude towards him. Instantly, a trace of rage appeared on his face, just when he was about to flare up. "Old boy, don't forget proper business." An emotionless male voice sounded out from the carriage, causing the old man with white eyebrows to instantly restrain his rage. Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he was slightly surprised. Looks like the person within the carriage wasn't simple. "Duan Lingtian, my master invites you." The old man with white eyebrows suppressed his rage as he spoke to Duan Lingtian. "Sorry, I'm not interested." Duan Lingtian shrugged and didn't mind. "Stop." Right at this moment, a delicate shout sounded out from within the carriage. This time it was the voice of a woman. He seemed to have heard this voice somewhere before, but Duan Lingtian was unable to recall it for a moment. Subsequently, the woman's voice sounded out once more. This time she was speaking to the man within the carriage. "Cousin, this Duan Lingtian doesn't know how to appreciate favors. In my opinion, we should directly ask Old Bai to kill him." Subsequently, the carriage went silent. "It's her?" Duan Lingtian finally recalled. Wasn't this voice that of Tong Li? Then the person she called cousin? Chapter 175. So it's the 5th prince. I've truly been rude. Duan Lingtian glanced at the carriage and smiled lightly. If the 5th prince has no other matters, then I'll be leaving first. After Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he continued walking forward. Wait. Right at this moment, the 5th prince's voice that didn't contain any emotion sounded out once more. Duan Lingtian stopped in his tracks. He was extremely curious. What exactly did this 5th prince want to do? Kneel down and kowtow 3 times. The enmity between you and my cousin will be written off at this point. The 5th prince's voice continued to sound out, and it contained an unquestionable tone. Kneel down and kowtow? Duan Lingtian's face went slightly grim and rage arose in his eyes. Cousin, I don't want him to kowtow, I want him to die. Tong Li's icy cold voice sounded out from the carriage, and her tone seemed as if there was no room for discussion. 2 idiots. Duan Lingtian sneered and continued walking forward. Duan Lingtian, if you leave just like this, you'll surely regret it. The 5th prince's voice continued to sound out. Sorry, there's never been the word regret in my, Duan Lingtian's dictionary. Duan Lingtian's face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost, and he didn't care about the 5th prince's threat in the slightest. A man had gold beneath his knees, and he knelt before the heavens, the earth, and his parents. Even the supreme emperor wouldn't be able to make him bow and bend the knee. Not to mention a mere prince. Presumptuous. The white-browed old man's face went grim, and a terrifying aura was emitted from his body, as if he wanted to chase after Duan Lingtian and kill him on the spot. Duan Lingtian stopped moving, and his eyes squinted as a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. If this white-browed old man dared to make a move, he would use the bone corrosion inscription to annihilate him at the first possible moment. Senior Bai, let's go back. The 5th prince's voice sounded out, and it faintly contained a trace of coldness. The white-browed old man caught his breath and suppressed the rage in his heart, then he drove the carriage away. Within the carriage, Tong Li looked unhappy. Cousin, didn't you say you would help me vent my anger? Why did you only ask that Duan Lingtian to kneel? The 5th prince smiled lightly. Cousin, for some people, death isn't the greatest punishment for them. Just like this Duan Lingtian, he has an unyielding character, and asking him to kneel down and kowtow is more difficult than asking him to die. However, I can be considered to have given him a chance today. In the future, even if I were to really kill him, the Duan clan would have nothing to say. Tong Li came to a realization and felt a little embarrassed. Cousin, I misunderstood you. However, Didn't that Duan Lingtian refuse to return to the Duan clan and didn't admit that he was a disciple of the Duan clan? Cousin, why are you still worried about the Duan clan? The fifth prince's eyes focused. Even though it's like that, the bloodline of the Duan clan's direct descendant flows in his body after all. Don't worry, cousin will absolutely not let off a person that bullies you. I'll let him live for a few more days. As he spoke, a doting expression appeared on the fifth prince's face. Thank you, cousin. Tong Li smiled, and her eyes flickered with a vicious sheen, as if she'd already seen the scene of Duan Lingtian being torn into pieces by her. On the other side, this fifth prince is simply even more arrogant than the third prince. As Duan Lingtian walked on the road, his heart went slightly cold. You better not offend me. Otherwise, even if you're a descendant of the imperial family, I still won't show mercy. Today, because of Su Li's departure, Duan Lingtian's mood wasn't good to begin with, and it faintly ignited flames of rage. Now the appearance of the fifth prince and Tong Li, as well as their condescending attitude of looking down at him, was like adding fuel to the fire, causing his rage to skyrocket and become difficult to restrain. Only when he arrived near the Divine Might Marquis estate did Duan Lingtian's expression ease up, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. In the entire imperial city, besides his family and a few friends, only the Divine Might Marquis estate was able to warm his heart. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the entrance of the Divine Might Marquis estate, a young soldier guarding the entrance took a step forward and shouted sternly at him. Stop! Slap! Before Duan Lingtian could speak, another middle-aged soldier caught up and raised his hand to slap the back of the young soldier's head. Brother Zhang, why did you hit me? The young soldier turned around and glared angrily at the middle-aged soldier. The middle-aged soldier paid no attention to the former and respectfully welcomed Duan Lingtian into the Divine Might Marquis estate. Young Master Lingtian, please come in. You know me? Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. He remembered that when he came here the last time, this person wasn't among the few soldiers guarding the entrance. Young Master Lingtian, when Vice General Pang invited you into the estate the last time, I just happened to see you. The middle-aged soldier said respectfully. He'd clearly seen that when Vice General Pang invited this youth in, Vice General Pang was extremely respectful and didn't dare slight this youth in the slightest. Duan Lingtian nodded and said, You go about your business, I'll go find the Marquis myself. After he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian entered the Divine Might Marquis estate with ease. Brother Zhang, who exactly is he? The young soldier rubbed the back of his head, but he wasn't angry anymore as he'd realized that the violet-clothed youth wasn't simple. Kid, you're really a newborn calf that isn't afraid of a tiger. As for who he is, I'm not too sure either. I only know that when he came last time, it was Vice General Pang who personally went to invite him. Moreover, it said that when he left, the Marquis and Junior Marquis personally sent him off. The middle-aged soldier had a fearful expression as he said, Now, do you think you deserve to be hit? The young soldier's face went pale from fright, and he hurriedly nodded. Deserved. Deserved. After entering the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian directly went to the audience hall. After the soldier guarding the entrance of the audience hall went to report, Duan Lingtian once again saw the Divine Might Marquis Nie Yuan. Little Tian. Nie Yuan had a brilliant smile on his face when he saw Duan Lingtian. What? You've come this time because you need Uncle Nie's help? Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Uncle Nie really has godlike foresight. Nie Yuan laughed as he scolded. You little fellow, don't play this game with Uncle Nie. Let me guess, it should be about the Su clan, right? Uncle Nie, you're quite well informed. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. In Paladin Academy, 2 students from the Su clan tried to assassinate another student, but were killed instead. The Vice Dean Zhan Xiong was enraged. He personally went to the Su clan and reduced the Su clan's recommendation quota from 5 to 3. Looks like that Vice Dean Zhan takes good care of you. Nie Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian with a spurious smile. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused. He knew that the Vice Dean had gone to the Su clan, but he didn't know that the Vice Dean had reduced the number of people that the Su clan recommended to enter Paladin Academy every year to 3. For a moment, a trace of gratitude arose in Duan Lingtian's heart towards the old man. Speak, what business do you have with Uncle Nie? Nie Yuan dotingly glanced at Duan Lingtian as he asked. Uncle Nie, I want information on the Su clan's businesses in the Imperial City, including information on the people in charge of those businesses. Duan Lingtian stated the purpose of his visit. You're here for this? Nie Yuan was slightly surprised. He thought that Duan Lingtian wanted him to step forward and suppress the Su clan's spirit, but he never imagined that Duan Lingtian actually came for this. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. There's nothing else? Nie Yuan asked again. Nothing else. Duan Lingtian shook his head. He came to the Divine Might Marquis estate precisely for this information. As for other matters, he could deal with them himself. Alright, come get it in 3 days. Nie Yuan deeply glanced at Duan Lingtian, but didn't ask any further. Thank you, Uncle Nie. Since it's like this, I'll go back first so as to avoid worrying my mother. Duan Lingtian said again. Subsequently, Nie Yuan personally sent Duan Lingtian out of the Divine Might Marquis estate. This caused the rash guard to feel a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't offend this violet-clothed youth earlier, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Early the next morning, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but frown as soon as he arrived at the entrance of Paladin Academy. The restlessness of the two little pythons and his acute spiritual force told him that someone was secretly watching him. Humph. Duan Lingtian stopped in his tracks and turned around to look into the distance, the corners of his mouth curling into a sneer. He didn't care who sent them. If they dared to show themselves, he didn't mind turning them into corpses. Outside Paladin Academy, in a secluded alley, 2 figures stood there, ramrod straight. He seems to have noticed us? One of the middle-aged men with a thin figure had a surprised expression. Seems like it. The other middle-aged man nodded. I heard he's only at the 9th level of the core formation stage. Logically speaking, it's impossible for him to notice us. The former went silent for a moment before speaking again. Maybe it's a coincidence. The latter was slightly uncertain as well. After Duan Lingtian walked into Paladin Academy, he noticed that the feeling of being watched had disappeared. He walked into the classroom as usual. An entire morning passed by in the midst of Sima Changfeng's long-winded lecture. During lunch, Duan Lingtian and the others were slightly unaccustomed to the absence of Su Li, so they tacitly maintained their silence. At dusk, after walking out of Paladin Academy's entrance and separating from Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Duan Lingtian once again felt that someone was spying on him, and it wasn't just one person. It seems to be the same 2 people from this morning. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart and walked into a remote alley. In this alley, he'd already successively lured and killed 2 batches of people that wanted to kill him. But this time, when he walked into the alley and slowly walked forward, those 2 people still didn't show themselves. Who the hell are they? Duan Lingtian frowned as he lost his patience. Since you 2 aren't taking the initiative, then I'll take the initiative. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as he sped up, disappearing at the end of the alley in the blink of an eye. The 2 middle-aged men appeared in the alley and swiftly walked forward, but they were no longer able to find any traces of Duan Lingtian. Although they were nascent soul-stage martial artists, they weren't inscription masters and their spiritual force wasn't very sharp. Moreover, they didn't have the tracking and anti-tracking abilities that Duan Lingtian had from his previous life as a special forces soldier and mercenary. He actually ran away under our noses. The thin middle-aged man had a bitter smile on his face. We can be sure that our feeling this morning wasn't wrong. He has indeed noticed us. The other middle-aged man had a serious expression. You 2 is playing hide-and-seek fun. Chapter 176. The 2 middle-aged men felt their scalps go numb and they broke out in cold sweat from fright as they slowly turned around. Their faces were filled with disbelief as they looked at the violet-clothed youth before them. When did this young man run behind them? They actually didn't notice him in the slightest. The 2 of them looked at each other and were able to see the astonishment in each other's eyes. When the 2 middle-aged men turned around, Duan Lingtian was sizing them up as well, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Who sent you 2? Duan Lingtian stared at the 2 of them as he spoke with a calm tone, yet it seemed to contain a sense of killing intent mixed within. Whoosh! Instantly, a terrifying bloody killing intent swept out from Duan Lingtian's body, and it enveloped the 2 of them without the slightest restraint. Instantly, the 2 of them went pale. It was difficult for them to imagine that a youth that looked to be around the age of 18 could actually possess such a terrifying killing intent. Instantly, a killing intent arose from their bodies as well, resisting Duan Lingtian's killing intent. The 2 killing intents converged together and were barely able to block Duan Lingtian's bloody killing intent. Duan Lingtian's brows raised when he felt the auras on the 2 of them, and his icy cold face eased up. Only then did the 2 middle-aged men heave a sigh of relief, and their faces were filled with lingering fear. Even in their dreams, they would never have imagined that a little fellow at the 9th level of the core formation stage would actually be able to give them such a terrifying pressure. If it wasn't for the fact that the person standing before them was indeed a youth, they would even think that this was a formidable man that had walked out from hell. Go back and tell your Marquis that I appreciate his good intentions. After Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he went around the two middle-aged men and directly left. You know our identities? The two middle-aged men were slightly surprised. Besides soldiers that have experienced hundreds of battles, how many people can possess such a dense killing intent from the battlefield? Under the gazes of the two middle-aged men, Duan Lingtian's figure gradually vanished ahead, but the words Duan Lingtian left behind caused the two of them to flush with embarrassment. A veteran of hundreds of battles? In front of this young man, they were too embarrassed to say that they were experienced soldiers on the battlefield. It seems that the general still underestimated his nephew. The thin middle-aged man shook his head and smiled bitterly. Since it's like this, let's go back. Not to mention anything else, with his ability, the number of people in the Su clan who can do anything to him can be counted on one hand. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of the other middle-aged man's mouth as he said slowly, Divine Might Marquis Estate. The Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan was stunned when he saw his two beloved generals standing in front of him with dejected expressions. Didn't I ask you to protect my nephew in secret? Why are you back? General, don't joke around. It's more likely that your nephew will protect us. The thin middle-aged man shook his head. He still had some lingering fear when he thought of the scene just now. Until now, he still couldn't wrap his head around how that violet-clothed youth actually relied on a cultivation at the 9th level of the core formation stage to arrive behind him without him noticing. He could imagine that if the violet-clothed youth was replaced by an enemy that was on par with him, he would undoubtedly die. Although the other middle-aged man didn't speak, he nodded in deep agreement. What do you mean by this? Nye Yuan frowned with a puzzled expression. The two people before him were his trusted generals. They were invincible on the battlefield and very few people were able to compare to them. But now the two of them were like frosted eggplants, listless and dispirited. It was difficult for him to imagine what actually happened to make his two beloved generals like this. Finally, under the narration of the two of them, Nye Yuan knew the ins and outs of the matter. He noticed your tracks at the first possible moment? Avoiding your pursuit and sneaking behind you without you noticing? Nye Yuan had an expression of disbelief. Although he knew that his nephew was mysterious, he never imagined that he was mysterious to such an extent. Ru Feng, what kind of little monster did you actually give birth to? The corners of Nye Yuan's mouth twitched and a trace of a sheen of envy and jealousy flashed past his eyes. The youth being able to cultivate to the 9th level of the core formation stage at the age of 18 and even become a grade 9 alchemist had already surprised him. He never imagined that besides this, the youth still had such a terrifying ability. Ordinary people might not think that the youth's pursuit and anti-pursuit ability was anything special, but as a figure like the god of war of the Crimson Sky Kingdom and a man that walked out of the battlefield, he was able to deeply realize how terrifying this ability was. If the youth had this ability, then it meant that sneaking into the enemy camp would be as easy as entering an uninhabited area. Even assassinating an enemy general wouldn't be a difficult matter. The agreement of 3 days arrived as scheduled. Duan Lingtian once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate. Within the audience hall, the Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan passed a stack of documents to Duan Lingtian. Little Tian, these are the things you wanted. Thank you, Uncle Nye. If there's nothing else, then I'll... After Duan Lingtian took the things, he intended to slip away. But would Nye Yuan allow him to leave? Wait. Nye Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian, his eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. Little Tian, I think we can have a chat. Chat about what? Duan Lingtian had a vigilant expression, because he noticed the fox-like smile on Nye Yuan's face. 2 days ago, didn't you silently sneak behind my two beloved generals without them noticing? Nye Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. Uncle Nye, this is what you wanted to talk about? Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. He thought it was something else. I've thought about it. If this ability of yours can be widely used in the army, you'll surely be able to create an invincible team. Sneaking into the enemy camp as easy as entering an uninhabited area, and taking the heads of enemy generals as easy as taking something out of your pocket. When Nye Yuan spoke of marching to war, his body unconsciously emitted an iron-blooded aura of slaughter. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be surprised. As expected of the god of war of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, just this aura of slaughter far surpassed the two people he met 2 days ago. Uncle Nye, you want me to teach you this ability? Duan Lingtian guessed Nye Yuan's intentions. Exactly. Nye Yuan's eyes shone as he nodded. If you're willing, Uncle Nye can agree to any request of yours. Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at Nye Yuan. Uncle Nye, I cured Grandfather Nye's poison, and you seem to still owe me a great favor, right? Nye Yuan laughed embarrassedly and rubbed his palms together. He was truly interested in Duan Lingtian's ability. Uncle Nye. Duan Lingtian looked at Nye Yuan with a serious expression. If you want to learn that ability of mine, it's not difficult, but it's not easy either. But it's not something that can be learned overnight. I naturally understand this. Just like marching to war and setting up formations, it requires accumulation over a long period of time before it can become an army that's always victorious. Nye Yuan nodded as he didn't find this strange. Since it's like this, then Uncle Nye send 2 people to me. I feel that the 2 people you sent to protect me last time aren't bad. Let them follow me for a period of time, and I'll surely be able to let them completely grasp my ability. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a wisp of an arc as he spoke slowly. Little fellow, your appetite is really big. Do you know that the 2 of them are top tiger generals under my command? Nye Yuan laughed as he scolded. But I presume they won't refuse to follow you and learn your ability. It was exactly as Nye Yuan had said. When the 2 middle-aged men that were sent by Duan Lingtian to protect Duan Lingtian in secret heard that Duan Lingtian wanted to teach them the miraculous tracking and anti-tracking ability, their eyes lit up as their breathing became hurried. They'd witnessed Duan Lingtian's ability, and they were able to realize what sort of improvement they would obtain after grasping that ability. Little Tian, how long do they have to learn it for? Nye Yuan's eyes squinted as he looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. What? Uncle Nye can't bear to? Don't worry, I'll need them for a year at most. After a year, even if they're unable to attain my current level, they'll surely be able to grasp the main points. So long as they practice more, they'll be able to catch up to me sooner or later. Duan Lingtian smiled as he spoke, and his face was filled with confidence. A year? That's not long. Nye Yuan's brows raised as he nodded. But, Duan Lingtian looked at Nye Yuan and hesitated to speak. What? Do you have any other requests? Nye Yuan asked. Uncle Nye, within this year, I hope that they can completely become my people and only listen to my orders. Others, including you, have no authority to order them. I need to have complete control over them. Duan Lingtian spoke of his request. If this is unable to be done, then everything from before will be nullified. Nye Yuan's brows frowned slightly, but it quickly eased up as he shook his head. Never mind, I'll do as you say. I presume that you ought to have some sense of propriety when doing things. Presently Nye Yuan didn't know. This decision would also become the decision he regretted the most in his entire lifetime. Only in the following days did he realize that in the concept of this nephew of his, there was utterly no sense of propriety. Duan Lingtian smiled. Deal? What are your names? Duan Lingtian looked at the 2 middle-aged men and asked. The middle-aged man with a tall and thin figure didn't dare hesitate. Young Master Lingtian, I'm called Zhang Qian. The other middle-aged man with a medium figure said respectfully, Young Master Lingtian, I'm called Zhao Gang. In the future, both of you can directly call me Young Master. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. Yes, Young Master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang hurriedly replied and were incomparably respectful. Even though the cultivation of the youth before them wasn't worth mentioning in their eyes, the ability of the youth in other aspects caused them to be wholeheartedly convinced. Uncle Nye, then I'll take them away. Obtaining 2 7th-level nascent soul stage tiger generals for no reason, even though they'd only followed him for a year, it caused Duan Lingtian to be rather delighted. This time, Nye Yuan didn't send Duan Lingtian off. He was truly worried that he would regret it. He kept having the feeling that this nephew of his wasn't someone easy to deal with. I hope he doesn't cause any trouble. Chapter 177. Walking out of the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Have the 2 of you gotten married? The 2 of them nodded, and a warm and happy smile appeared on their faces. They obviously thought of their wives and children at home. From the 2 of them, Duan Lingtian found out that their families lived in the Divine Might Marquis estate. After bringing the 2 of them back to the courtyard house, Duan Lingtian called over the housekeeper, Jianghu. Jianghu asked the servant girls to help them clean up 2 rooms. Yes, young master. After Jianghu left, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and his expression became serious. I don't want anyone besides me, you two, and the people here to know about this courtyard house that I live in, including the Divine Might Marquis. Understand? Yes, young master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were both soldiers and understood that military orders were like mountains. In their eyes, Duan Lingtian would be their general for the next year. In the future, the 2 of you stay at my place for 3 days, then return to the Divine Might Marquis estate to stay for 1 day. Also, when I go to Paladin Academy, the 2 of you can go back and accompany your families, and wait for me outside Paladin Academy in the evening. Duan Lingtian continued to instruct. Thank you, young master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were already prepared to be separated from their families for a year, but they never expected that Duan Lingtian would be so reasonable, and their hearts were filled with gratitude. Before long, Jianghu asked the servant girls to clean up the rooms. After Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang returned to their rooms, Duan Lingtian arrived at the rear courtyard. Scoundrel, who are the 2 people you brought back? Li Fei asked curiously. They're people I borrowed from Uncle Nye. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Li Fei nodded and didn't ask any further. She knew clearly in her heart that this man had his reasons for everything he did. Before long, Duan Lingtian returned to his room after greeting the 3 girls. He took out the stack of information he obtained from the Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan. This information was all about the Su clan's various businesses in the Imperial City, as well as the information of the people in charge of the various businesses. After taking a casual look, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement. As expected of one of the 3 great clans of the royal city. The clan's businesses can be found all over the royal city, from the outer city to the inner city. Inns, apothecaries, weapon shops, restaurants, they have everything that one could wish for. Also, these people in charge are all at the nascent soul realm or above. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto one of the pages. Su Lai, 3rd level of the nascent soul stage, the nephew of the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. He's in charge of the Bright Star and under the Su clan in the inner city. He's fond of women, and his greatest hobby is forcefully seizing common women. He once burned and killed a family of 7 for a common woman. Look at this. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed in them. He sneered, like uncle, like nephew. You're the one. After putting away the stack of information into his storage ring, Duan Lingtian walked out of his room and arrived at the front courtyard. After calling out Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, Duan Lingtian brought them out of the courtyard house. Presently it was already deep into the night. Not many people could be seen on the streets. With Duan Lingtian in the lead, the 3 of them quickly arrived outside an inn. Young master, this is? Zhang Qian was slightly bewildered. Murder. Duan Lingtian's gaze squinted and coldness suffused his eyes. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang shuddered and gasped. Probably only this youth could speak of murder so casually. Although they'd killed many people on the battlefield. That was a battlefield and this was the Imperial City. The meaning was completely different. This seems to be the Su clan's business. Zhang Qian's eyes squinted. Let's go. Duan Lingtian brought the 2 of them along the wall at the side of the inn and snuck up to the roof of the inn. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang obediently followed behind. After searching for a while, Duan Lingtian finally confirmed the location of their target. They were hiding on the roof of the inn. Don't. No. I beg you. Don't. A woman's cry for help came from the room. Duan Lingtian gently lifted up a tile and clearly saw the scene inside. A fatty with a belly full of fat was forcing himself on a plainly dressed, somewhat beautiful woman. The woman was obviously very unwilling and struggled with all her might. Bad luck. In an instant, the fatty lost his patience and kicked out, directly sending the woman flying. She crashed into the wall and completely lost all signs of life. This scene caught Duan Lingtian and the other 2 somewhat off guard. Although Duan Lingtian was furious, he still held his breath and his face was gloomy. Bastard. However, the faces of the 2 sturdy men beside him who had walked out from the battlefield changed greatly and they angrily shouted in a low voice. Who? The fatty in the room noticed the commotion and his face changed greatly. When he raised his head, he noticed that a tile on the roof had been lifted up by someone. You 2. Really? Glancing helplessly at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, Duan Lingtian shook his head. Looks like the first lesson I have to give you 2 is how to control your emotions. Alright, now that they've been alarmed by you two, I'll leave it to you two to deal with. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he helplessly spread out his hands. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had long since been waiting for Duan Lingtian to say these words. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, their legs shook as they directly stepped through the roof and directly flashed in. Duan Lingtian followed them down. Where did you little thieves come from? You actually dare to have ideas about this lord? Didn't you ask who this lord is? The fatty with a bare upper body and a belly full of fat, the nephew of the Su clan's grand elder Su Nan Su Lai, looked at Duan Lingtian's group of three with a face full of disdain. However, since you've come, then stay behind. The fat on Su Lai's body trembled as 400 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed above him, and he revealed the strength of a third-level nascent soul stage martial artist as he pounced towards Duan Lingtian's group of three. Bang, bang, bang. The fatty's palm descended and shook 3 times in the air before transforming into 3 palm prints that flashed directly towards Duan Lingtian's group of 3. Umph. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang moved, and 100 ancient mammoth silhouettes each appeared above them. "200 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. 2 7th-level nascent soul stage martial artists. Su Lai was dumbstruck. He originally thought that it was only 3 little thieves, but he never imagined that there were actually 2 7th-level nascent soul stage martial artists, and his face completely went pale. Who are you people? Su Lai shouted in a stern voice. But unfortunately what awaited him was the enraged attacks of Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. After easily shattering Su Lai's 3 palm prints, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's attacks descended onto Su Lai's body like a storm. Instantly, Su Lai's fat body completely deformed, and he didn't make a sound. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian slowly walked over and took off the spatial ring on Su Lai's hand, directly establishing ownership over it. When he saw the large pile of silver bills and silver ingots within the spatial ring, Duan Lingtian's eyes shone and he muttered to himself. These silver bills and silver ingots added together are at least 7 or 8 million silver. Not bad. 7 or 8 million silver. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were dumbstruck. Young master, who is this fatty? Zhang Qian fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and a bad premonition arose within his heart. You don't know who he is, yet you still charged up to give him a beating and killed him? Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Forget it, if I killed him then I killed him. My target this time was originally him. This person is called Su Lai, and seems to be the manager of this inn. His other identity is that he's a direct descendant of the Su clan, and is also the nephew of the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. Duan Lingtian shrugged and finished speaking in one breath. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's faces completely changed. A direct descendant of the Su clan. Heavens! Even the Divine Might Marquis wouldn't dare so brazenly kill a direct descendant of the Su clan like this, right? What? You two don't think he deserved to die? Duan Lingtian noticed their expressions and they had a strange expression. They seemed to be the ones who charged the fiercest earlier, right? Manager, what's the matter? Right at this moment, a wave of clamorous sounds came from outside the room, and it grew closer and closer. If you don't want to be discovered, then leave quickly. Duan Lingtian swept Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang with his gaze, then he took the first step to borrow strength from the room and jumped onto the penetrated roof. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang didn't dare think too much as they hurriedly followed him out. If the members of the Su clan were to find out that they killed this Su Lai, then even the Divine Might Marquis wouldn't be able to protect them. This was a direct descendant of the Su clan. A large clan like the Su clan valued face the most, and killing a direct descendant of the Su clan was tantamount to slapping their face. After leaving the inn and going around a few streets, Duan Lingtian finally slowed down his speed. How was it? Was it satisfying? Duan Lingtian looked at the two of them and grinned. It was satisfying. But that was a direct descendant of the Su clan. If the Su clan were to find out that it was us, then we'd be completely finished. Zhang Qian had a bitter smile on his face. He was now slightly regretting leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate with this youth. He hadn't even learned anything yet, but had already provoked such a monstrous disaster. Although Zhao Gang didn't say anything, judging from his expression, he obviously had the same thoughts as Zhang Qian. You also said that if they were to find out that it was us, then wouldn't it be fine if we didn't let them find out? Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Can't this guy's brain work? Swish. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and withdrew 2 large stacks of silver before passing them over to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Tonight's gains weren't bad. This is for the two of you, 1 million silver each. 1 million silver? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang shuddered and were completely dumbstruck. Even if they were 7th level nascent soul martial artists and were generals, that were only below one person in the army, but the wealth they'd accumulated over half of their lives in the army was only a few 100,000 silver. Now, they were able to obtain so much money just by killing a damnable fatty that angered both men and gods? They both felt that they weren't dreaming. However, the two of them didn't accept the silver that Duan Lingtian passed over. Young master, we can't take this money. Stop being wishy-washy, quickly take it. Tonight was only the beginning. In the future, follow this young master and I guarantee that you'll make a killing. Ignoring their refusal, Duan Lingtian forcefully stuffed the silver into their hands as he spoke casually. Tonight was only the beginning? Humph. Su Boya coldly snorted. Killing a direct descendant of my Su clan is tantamount to slapping my Su clan's face. Pass down the order to track down the culprit. If there's anyone who provides clues, they'll be rewarded with 10,000 silver. Rewarded with 10,000 silver? At dawn the next day, when Duan Lingtian had just arrived at the classroom, he heard some of the students in the class discussing what happened in the Su clan last night. That Su clan is really stingy. The life of a direct descendant is only worth 10,000 silver in their eyes? Duan Lingtian's gaze was strange, but he was extremely delighted in his heart. Before long, a trace of coldness appeared in Duan Lingtian's eyes. Sunan, what happened last night was only the beginning? Since you want to play, then I'll play along with your Su clan. Sunan, the Su clan's grand elder, the mastermind who forced Su Li to leave. That afternoon, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds and cultivated as usual. Bang! The bottleneck that he originally thought would require a period of time to break through was instantly broken through under Duan Lingtian's concentrated cultivation. His cultivation had officially stepped into the 6th level of the core formation stage. Broke through? Duan Lingtian opened his eyes and was slightly surprised. How could it be so fast? Duan Lingtian didn't know. The cultivation of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique walked the path of being overbearing and following one's heart. This time, because of Su Li's departure, his mentality underwent a huge change. It was as if he'd returned to being the iron-blooded weapons specialist from his previous life who had no scruples. As long as it's someone who bullies my friends, brothers, or family, then I'll definitely return the favor 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, or even 10,000-fold. This kind of mentality just happened to be in line with the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique's overbearing and following one's heart. It also allowed Duan Lingtian's cultivation to advance at a rapid pace, directly breaking through the bottleneck of the 5th level of the core formation stage and stepping into the 6th level of the core formation stage in one go. Even to the extent that as long as Duan Lingtian maintained this kind of mentality, his future cultivation speed of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique would surely be able to maintain a rapid pace of advancement. After all, the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique was a cultivation technique of the same level as the supreme cultivation technique of the Samsara Emperor Wu, the triple life rebirth technique. Even surpassing top cultivation techniques like the Han Bing's God Sword technique, the Demonic Beauty Divine technique, and the Sun Moon Star technique. After breaking through to the 6th level of the core formation stage, Duan Lingtian was overjoyed in his heart. When I return tonight, I'll refine another dragon blood pill and directly complete the tempering of my fleshly body with origin energy. After that, I can continue charging towards the 7th level of the core formation stage. Duan Lingtian was slightly excited in his heart. Once he completed the tempering of his fleshly body for the 6th level of the core formation stage, he wouldn't need to use the violet myrtle flexible sword and would be able to exert the strength of 16 ancient mammoths. As a grade 8 spirit weapon, the violet myrtle flexible sword was able to increase his strength by almost 20%. At that time, if he utilized the violet myrtle flexible sword, he would be able to exert the strength of 19 ancient mammoths. An ordinary 9th level core formation martial artist only possessed the strength of 12 ancient mammoths, and if he wanted to exert the strength of 19 ancient mammoths, he would have to rely on a grade 4 spirit weapon. However, not to mention the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that had numerous sects and experts like the Clouds might not possess a grade 4 spirit weapon. Could be said that after tonight, Duan Lingtian? Even in the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, or even in the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, he could be said to be invincible below the Origin Core stage. At dusk, after Duan Lingtian left Paladin Academy, his brows slightly knit. Interesting. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a trace of an imperceptible sneer. He noticed that besides his subordinates Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, there were another 3 people that were observing him from the shadows. Alas, are the people of this world so unprofessional when it comes to tracking? Duan Lingtian shrugged, then walked into a small alley in the distance with a familiarity. Not long after he entered the small alley, 3 figures seemed to have transformed into 3 gusts of wind that flashed directly towards Duan Lingtian, then they split into a triangle and completely surrounded Duan Lingtian. These were 3 middle-aged men with cold and expressionless faces. Their icy cold eyes stared at Duan Lingtian as if they were looking at a dead man. Could it be that your master thinks that just the 3 of you are sufficient to take my life? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a trace of a sneer. He vaguely sensed that the cultivations of these 3 people were between the 1st level of the nascent soul stage and the 3rd level of the nascent soul stage. It was even to the extent that they were inferior to the fatty Su Lai from the Bright Star in last night. Target confirmed kill. One of the middle-aged men spoke with an incomparably icy cold voice, and as soon as he finished speaking, his entire body moved, pouncing towards Duan Lingtian. The other 2 middle-aged men moved along with him. 300 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above the person that spoke, and he was obviously a 2nd-level nascent soul stage martial artist. The other 2 were both 1st-level nascent soul stage martial artists. Duan Lingtian didn't have any intention of dodging when facing the joint forces of the 3 people, and it was even to the extent that he didn't allow the 2 little pythons under his sleeve to attack. At practically the instant the 3 people pounced towards Duan Lingtian. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 figures that were a few times faster than the 3 people seemed to have transformed into 2 bolts of lightning as they instantly flashed into the battlefield and stood by Duan Lingtian's side, protecting Duan Lingtian behind them. In the air above the 2 people, the strength of 1,000 ancient mammoths surged out. 7th level of the core formation stage. The 3 middle-aged men's faces went pale. The information is wrong, let's go. The 2nd-level nascent soul stage martial artist's body trembled in the air as he stomped on the ground, desiring to borrow the force to flee. The other 2 people hurriedly stopped as well and fled in 2 different directions. Umph. A cold snort accompanied by a figure that was like a bolt of lightning instantly passed by the 2nd-level nascent soul stage martial artist. The other figure that was like a bolt of lightning caught up to the other 2 1st-level nascent soul stage martial artists. Leave them alive. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused slightly as he ordered. He wanted to know who sent these 3 people. No matter who sent them, he would make the other party pay the price for this. After a short moment, Zhang Qian's palm descended and heavily injured the 2nd-level nascent soul stage martial artist. Then like an eagle catching a chick, he brought the 2nd-level nascent soul stage martial artist before Duan Lingtian. On the other side, after Zhao Gang killed one of the 1st-level nascent soul stage martial artists, he captured the other person. As long as you tell me who sent you, I can spare your lives. Duan Lingtian slowly walked out and his gaze descended onto the 2 middle-aged men with ghastly pale complexions. His voice was cold and indifferent as if it came from the depths of hell. Suddenly Duan Lingtian's face went pale. A scene that only appeared in martial arts novels from his previous life appeared before his eyes. Chapter 179. The 2 middle-aged men's faces darkened as they died from the poison and committed suicide. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang glanced at each other and their expressions changed. Suicide soldiers. Suicide soldiers? What suicide soldiers? Duan Lingtian frowned. He didn't understand why Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's reactions were so big. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang glanced at Duan Lingtian and felt their scalps go numb. What kind of people did this young master offend? Zhang Qian took a deep breath and slowly explained, "Young master, the so-called men of sacrifice, are a group of chess pieces that are not afraid of death and were trained by some people with great schemes. These people are only loyal to one master and serve one master. As long as the master is willing, they are willing to give up everything for the master, including their lives. These men of sacrifice would rather die than reveal the identity of their master once they failed their mission." After Zhang Qian finished speaking, he and Zhao Gang both looked at Duan Lingtian. They were very curious as to how this young master offended the people behind these suicide soldiers. So these are the suicide soldiers. Duan Lingtian nodded, and a trace of coldness arose in his heart. To complete the mission unafraid of death. These people were simply killing machines that had lost their humanity. Young master, did you offend someone? Zhao Gang asked hesitantly. I've offended many people. Don't you know the Su clan as well? Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he spoke directly. Young master, logically speaking, it's impossible for these suicide soldiers to be members of the Su clan. Zhang Qian shook his head. According to what I know, these suicide soldiers are usually from the army. Only a few people with high positions would secretly gather these people and form a team of suicide soldiers under them. At the critical moment, they can transform into sharp blades and directly pierce into the enemy's chest. Then who do you think these suicide soldiers are most likely under? Duan Lingtian slightly frowned as he asked. Young master, within the imperial city, these suicide soldiers are more commonly seen under the princes of the imperial family. As long as it's a prince who has the intention of obtaining the throne, they've basically trained a group of suicide soldiers under them, without exception. Zhao Gang said with a solemn expression. His eyes could not help but reveal a trace of suspicion. Could it be that the young master had a grudge with those lofty existences? Prince? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed. Needless to say, he could guess that the 3 men of sacrifice who appeared here to assassinate him were either the 3rd prince's men or the 5th prince's men. 3rd prince, 5th prince. No matter which one of you made a move, I hope that both of you will stop before going too far. Otherwise, not to mention that you have no fate with the throne, even your lives will be in danger. Duan Lingtian's face darkened as killing intent rose in his heart. Come on, let's go back. Duan Lingtian called out to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang and went straight to his house. On the way, Duan Lingtian did not forget to scold the 2 of them. The 2 of you, the next time you're following me in secret, can you be more professional? I discovered your whereabouts as soon as I left Paladin Academy. As Duan Lingtian scolded the 2 of them, he also imparted to them the general knowledge of tracking that he learned from his previous life as a Special Forces soldier. When had Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang ever heard of these new things? For a moment, they were both intoxicated as they listened. They never thought that a mere tracking actually had so many things to pay attention to. The 2 of them looked at Duan Lingtian with even more respect. At the same time, they couldn't help but be curious. Where in the world did this youth learn all these things? You 2 rest and prepare. Tonight, this young master will bring you 2 out to do a big deal. After returning to the house, Duan Lingtian informed Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, then walked into the main building and returned to his room. Big deal? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang looked at each other and could see the wry smile on each other's face. They naturally knew what the big deal the youth was talking about. But did they still have a choice? As the saying goes, one wrong step leads to many wrong steps. The 2 of them helplessly shook their heads and obediently returned to their rooms to rest. As for Duan Lingtian, after returning, he didn't even have the time to greet the 3 beauties at home before directly returning to his room. Whoosh! The cauldron was taken out by him. Subsequently, he started to refine the dragon blood pill. After he finished refining the dragon blood pill, Duan Lingtian directly consumed it. Instantly, his fleshly body completed the tempering of the 6th level of the core formation stage and gained the strength of an ancient mammoth. This also meant that his next step was to directly charge to the 7th level of the core formation stage. I'm finally about to catch up to those 2 little girls. A smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. Ever since they settled down in the inner city of the Imperial City, no matter if it was Kerr or Little Fei, they would spend over 10 hours cultivating every day with the help of an inexhaustible supply of high-purity origin-increasing pills. Now, the 2 girls had successively broken through to the 7th level of the core formation stage. But Duan Lingtian believed that with his current cultivation speed, he would surely be able to catch up to the 2 girls before long. Young master, it's time to eat. A voice that was like a silver bell sounded from outside. Duan Lingtian opened the door and saw Kerr standing at the door. Looking at the slim and graceful young girl, Duan Lingtian's gaze was slightly absent-minded. The current Kerr wasn't the little girl from before, she'd grown up. Looking at Kerr's beautiful face that was as white as jade and the pair of plump buds on her chest, Duan Lingtian's lower abdomen heated up and evil thoughts arose in his heart. Maybe he should find a time to eat Kerr up. Young master, I'll go out first. You quickly come out and eat as well. Kerr noticed Duan Lingtian's gaze and her heartbeat sped up. Her beautiful face blushed as she quickly walked out. This girl is shy. Duan Lingtian shook his head and laughed, then chased after her. After he finished eating, Duan Lingtian returned to his room and took out the information of the people in charge of the Su clan's various businesses. In the end, he locked onto a target. Su Yong, 6th level nascent soul stage martial artist, the younger cousin of the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. He's in charge of the Su clan's largest medicine store, Jianghu Pavilion. He has 2 sons who commit all sorts of crimes, and it's Su Yong who cleans up their messes every single time, ruthlessly destroying all threats. After he finished looking at Su Yong's information, Duan Lingtian decided on him. The main reason he chose him was naturally because of his relationship with Su Nan. Secondly, it was because of his vile conduct. Besides having 2 ignorant and incompetent good-for-nothing sons, he himself was full of evil deeds. As the saying goes, like father like son. In this world where the strong are respected, it's like this. There's no law to speak of, and the fist is the law. Just like this Su Yong. The conduct of him and his 2 sons can be said to be known by everyone within the imperial city. However, even the imperial family that controls the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom would turn a blind eye out of respect for the Su clan, and wouldn't punish them. Although Duan Lingtian didn't think of being some savior, since he'd decided to teach the Su clan a lesson, he naturally wouldn't be lenient. You can only blame yourself for being unlucky. If it wasn't for your Su clan going too far, I wouldn't have targeted you. After Duan Lingtian finished looking through the other information related to Su Yong, he left the room. It was deep into the night, and it was impossible to see one's own fingers. In the northern direction of the imperial city's inner city was a residential area, and there was an extremely vast courtyard house within it. Within the courtyard house, the lights were extinguished, and the people within had obviously already fallen asleep. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures were like night owls as they passed over the walls of the courtyard house and snuck into the courtyard house. Let's go. Moonlight sprinkled down, and the figure of the person in the lead appeared. It was a young man in black clothes and had his face covered. It was precisely Duan Lingtian. His target tonight was the Su clan's Su Yong. This Su Yong didn't live in the Su clan estate, and had instead bought a courtyard house outside by himself. He had a few concubines and his days were extremely comfortable. Under the lead of Duan Lingtian, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, who similarly wore black clothes and had their faces covered, lightly followed behind. Through the moonlight, the helplessness in their exposed eyes could be seen. When had they ever been so sneaky? Young master, in my opinion, that Su Yong is only at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. Why don't we just openly charge in and kill him? Zhang Qian said. Although Zhao Gang didn't speak, he deeply agreed and nodded. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Why do I feel that these 2 fellows are even more ferocious than me? Fair and square? Duan Lingtian sneered in a low voice. If you 2 directly charge in, then what difference does it make if I'm there or not? Don't forget why your general asked the 2 of you to follow me. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang came to a sudden understanding. So the young master was training them. If there's no need, then kill Su Yong alone. Duan Lingtian brought Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang into the main building and arrived outside the innermost master bedroom. Duan Lingtian pushed out with his palm and shook open the lock on the door. Bang! The door was knocked open by Duan Lingtian. Who's there? Instantly, an explosive shout sounded out from within the room, and subsequently the room lit up with a lamp. The entire room was completely illuminated. The middle-aged man that was originally completely naked covered his body with the clothes on the bed, then leaped off the bed and glared fiercely with his triangular eyes as he stared at Duan Lingtian's group of 3 who were covered under black clothes, and his face was gloomy. Who are you people? On the bed, a young woman that looked to be around 20 years old shrunk to the corner of the bed in fear and pulled over the blanket to cover her completely naked body. Kill him. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as he ordered in a low voice. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang moved, flashing directly towards the middle-aged man with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like rainbows. Above them, 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes each appeared. 2 7th-level core formation martial artists. The middle-aged man, Su Yong, went pale as he realized that they didn't come with good intentions. His gaze quickly landed on a window not far away. His figure moved and with a loud bang he broke through the window and jumped out. Above him, 800 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared as well. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's pupils constricted as they chased after him. No. Don't kill me. Chapter 180. At this moment, Duan Lingtian heard a burst of clamorous sounds coming from the front courtyard of the house, and he knew that the commotion here had alarmed the others. Under the girl's terrified gaze, Duan Lingtian's brows raised, then he raised his hand and knocked her unconscious before chasing out of the window. In any case, his face was covered now, so he wasn't worried about being recognized. Outside the window was the rear courtyard of this house. Presently, Su Yong was lying by the wall of the rear courtyard, not moving and not making a sound. Obviously, he didn't manage to escape. Thinking about it, it made sense. How could a 6th-level nascent soul martial artist possibly escape from the joint forces of 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists? At this moment, Zhang Qian removed the spatial ring from Su Yong's body and respectfully passed it to Duan Lingtian. "Young master. Let's go." Duan Lingtian arrived at the side of the wall in a few steps, then his legs exerted force and his origin energy skyrocketed. Above him, the strength of 10+ ancient mammoths flashed, directly leaping over the wall and arriving outside the house. When Duan Lingtian left with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, he could faintly hear a sorrowful cry coming from the rear courtyard. "Master." On the way, Duan Lingtian claimed ownership of the spatial ring, and the wealth within caused his eyes to light up. 30 million plus silver. Sure enough, it was as he thought. This Su Yong had worked for most of his life, and the wealth he accumulated far surpassed the fatty Su Lai from last night. In fact, Su Lai could be considered to be Su Yong's nephew. This uncle and nephew pair gave him a total of close to 40 million silver. "Take it." Duan Lingtian withdrew another 2 million silver and gave it to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. The two of them didn't refuse this time and directly put it away. As far as they were concerned, now that they were following this exceedingly audacious youth, it was practically a 90% chance of survival. If they were to make a mistake one day, then this wealth could be left to their wives and children. With the Divine Might Marquis present, they didn't have to worry about their wives and children being burdened by them. It could be said that they'd already made plans for the worst. After all, what they were doing now was like making a steel wire on a cliff. The slightest carelessness would cause them to fall and shatter into pieces. The Su clan was not easy to deal with. If Duan Lingtian knew what Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were thinking, he would definitely be speechless. He had done similar things countless times in his previous life. Other than the time when he was betrayed, when had he ever failed? When he returned to the house, Duan Lingtian, who was already in a good mood, welcomed another pleasant surprise. Xiong Quan had actually spent all the 50 million silver he gave him last time, and had even gathered enough materials to inscribe over 10 bone corrosion inscriptions. After today, the Su clan will definitely be vigilant. I'll rest for a few days and use the next few nights to help Mother and those 2 little girls inscribe some bone corrosion inscriptions. Duan Lingtian's heart stirred and he had a plan. To him, nothing was more important than the safety of his family. Duan Lingtian, who was in an extremely good mood, stealthily snuck into Li Fei's room. Li Fei hadn't slept yet, and was sitting cross-legged on the soft bed cultivating. When she heard movement, she opened her eyes and with a glance, she saw Duan Lingtian. She didn't even have time to react before being pushed onto the bed by Duan Lingtian. "Little Fei, your husband is here." Very quickly, accompanied by Duan Lingtian's heavy breathing, the soft bed started to sway, composing a decadent movement. Only when it was deep into the night did the movements of the two finally stop. The sound of panting pervaded the room. Just when Duan Lingtian was fully satisfied as he hugged the flushed little Fei and fell asleep, the higher-ups of the Su clan once again gathered in the audience hall overnight. "Killing 2 of our Su clan's direct descendant disciples in 2 consecutive nights. Looks like someone has the intention to go against our Su clan." Under the rage of the Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, his palm descended, and the armrest of the new chair that had just been changed today was shattered. The Grand Elder, Su Nan, who was below him, had an extremely unsightly expression. Last night his nephew died. Tonight his cousin had died. He suddenly felt that the spearhead of all this seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally pointing towards him. It wasn't only Su Nan who thought this way, even the other Su clan elders had similar thoughts. "Grand Elder, did you offend someone?" "Yeah, Grand Elder, if you offended someone you can speak of it. We can use this clue to track down the true culprit." "Grand Elder, could it be that you have some difficulties?" "Grand Elder, I hope you can consider the big picture." One by one, the Su clan elders pointed their spearhead at Su Nan. The gaze of the patriarch, Su Boya, couldn't help but descend onto Su Nan. Now even he had some doubts. "Patriarch, I, Su Nan, can swear that I absolutely haven't offended anyone recently." If you really want to talk about conflicts, then it ought to be that Su Li and Duan Lingtian. However, it's absolutely impossible for the two of them to have the ability to kill Su Li and Su Yong. Being misunderstood by so many people, Su Nan was angered to the point his face flushed red, and in his heart, he hated that culprit to the bone. Su Li? Many of the Su clan elders present knew who Su Li was, and they all asked, "What does this have to do with Su Li?" Su Nan took a deep breath and spoke of the dispute between him and Su Li, including the fact that Su Li had already left Paladin Academy. When he first found out about this matter, he was very surprised as well. He never would have thought that Su Li, for the sake of his friend Duan Lingtian, and for the sake of his parents' safety, was actually willing to give up his great future. As far as he was concerned, Su Li's choice was extremely stupid. Grand Elder, you really do have the ability to not even let off a child. A Su clan elder who had a good relationship with Su Li's father couldn't help but sneer as he glanced at Su Nan with disdain. As far as he was concerned, the actions of the dignified Su clan's Grand Elder caused one's hair to stand on end. It's impossible for Su Li. As for that Duan Lingtian, although he's the son of Duan Ruffing, he still hasn't returned to the Duan clan, so it's impossible for him to have such ability. Grand Elder, did you miss something? Su Boya pondered for a moment, then looked at Su Nan with a burning gaze. Absolutely not. Su Nan shook his head with a face full of certainty. Su Boya frowned and pondered for a moment before speaking. No matter if it was Su Li from last night or Su Yong from tonight, after they were killed, their spatial rings vanished without a trace. Could it be that the goal of that person was to seek wealth? If it was to seek wealth, then it can be explained. No matter if it was Su Li or Su Yong, they were both the people in charge of the businesses under our Su clan. A Su clan elder said. Pass down the order, tell all the people in charge of the businesses to return to the Su clan estate and stay there. I want to see if that person dares to barge into our Su clan estate. Su Boya nodded and gave the order right away, and his eyes flickered with a cold sheen. In just 2 days the Su clan had lost 2 direct descendant disciples. As the Su clan's patriarch, he had lost all face and felt a great humiliation. Early the next morning the entire imperial city was bustling with noise and excitement, and the matter of the Su clan members dying for 2 consecutive nights was spread everywhere. Moreover, the people who died were all direct descendant disciples of the Su clan. That Su clan wouldn't have offended someone, right? Who knows? But the 2 people who died weren't any good people. True, it's good for a few more people like this to die. Shh. Be quiet, are you courting death? If the Su clan members hear what you said, then don't think of living. No matter if it was the imperial city's outer city or the inner city, it was filled with similar discussions. 5th Prince's estate. Your Highness, the 3 death warriors we sent out yesterday haven't returned for an entire night. I'm afraid they've met with misfortune. In a quiet pergola, the white-browed old man respectfully reported to the luxuriously clothed young man who was sipping fragrant tea. 3 nascent soul-stage martial artists weren't able to take the life of that Duan Lingtian? The luxuriously clothed young man, the 5th Prince, had a slightly gloomy expression. Looks like the Duan clan is really benevolent and takes good care of this rebellious direct descendant disciple. Your Highness, what you mean is that the Duan clan members are protecting him. The white-browed old man was stunned. Besides this, do you think he has anyone else to rely on? The 5th Prince grunted coldly as he asked. The white-browed old man went silent for a short moment before saying, Your Highness, then should we still? Let's put this matter aside for now. I heard that 2 direct descendant disciples of the Su clan died these past 2 nights. Send someone to investigate, and if you're able to find any clues, then give the Su clan a favor. Once the matter is completed, I want the Su clan to help me in the battle for the throne. I presume the Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, wouldn't refuse. The 5th Prince's eyes flickered, and a wisp of light flashed within. Yes. The white-browed old man replied and left. Duan Lingtian, you've injured my cousin over and over again. Even if the Duan clan members are secretly protecting you, you won't be able to jump around for long. A trace of a cold light flashed within the 5th Prince's eyes. The ghastly shadow assassin organization could be said to be everywhere within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Even within the imperial city, there was a ghastly shadow stronghold. In a remote corner of the inner city. Very few people knew that the ghastly shadow stronghold in the imperial city was here. Deep into the night. A middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance sneakily looked around before walking into the ghastly shadow stronghold, entering the hall and arriving before the counter. Target. Behind the counter, the young man with a stiff expression revealed a bone-piercing icy-cold voice. This caused the middle-aged man to feel a chill run down his spine as he said in panic, Duan Lingtian, 9th level of the core formation stage, grade 1 student of Paladin Academy.